Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Here's the 2-1 offer. Vinnie swings, hits it to left field pretty well. It's carrying, Benintendi back to the wall. It's gone, a home run. Freddie Freeman in opposite field homer ties the game at 3. Home run number 12 for Freeman.
First pitch to Nimmo is lined in the air deep to right. This sends Soto back at the track, and it's gone. Brandon Nimmo, a 2-run homer. The Mets have absolutely teed off on Garrett Cole tonight. 6-0 New York in the 4th.
Reynolds, one of the best ever hitting in this ballpark. 3-2 pitch. Swing and a fly ball hit deep to right. This one's way back and gone. A long home run for Reynolds. He extends the hitting streak by hitting a 2-run home run halfway up the grandstands in right. 2-0 Pirates.
2-2 pitch, high fly ball, deep left field. Racing back is Langford. Onto the warning track at the wall. He leaps and it's gone. Joey Ortiz sent him to the All-Star game.
Good morning. Welcome in to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That is DB. I'm Ravi Lulla on the Pillar Exterior stage. What up, DB?
Oh, just trying to make it. How are things?
I just got this. I know he's not a real popular guy right now, but I got this Justin Timberlake song stuck in my head.
Dun, 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 dun.
What goes around comes back around. I thought I told you.
So it's not that he was just recently arrested? Or?
No, that's not. That's. I'm thinking of him despite his arrest.
Oh, different.
Just the theme of that song seems to be fitting this morning here on a Wednesday.
That's crazy, man. Like you just never. I mean, from recruiting,
you never
to
know.
Guys and gals telling you they're going to take jobs to. It's always volatile, isn't it? It's not comfortable being JJ Redick. It's not comfortable being TJ Lateef. It's not comfortable being Trevor Alberts. It's not comfortable being Jim Schlossnagel.
I appreciate you using his full government name, Trevor.
I don't even know if that's his government name.
I don't either.
Fudge, man, like a thief in the night, huh?
Yeah.
Nothing would please me more.
The best part, and I'll be honest here, I do think it's objectively hilarious that this is happening to Trev Alberts. I honestly don't think it's his fault.
No. If
I'm being real, like, is it hilarious?
I just don't think I think it's too much to ask that he had his finger on the pulse of this early in the tenure with this kind of relationship with his coach.
Now,
but his coach did kind of sell a bill of goods.
The only thing that I've heard that you like, and I'm not in the nitty gritty with Texas A&M, but I
smell fantastic.
I have spent a little bit of time on their message boards, which are
the A&M Ags.
Tex Ags, yeah, which are just ridiculous.
So,
you think message boards around here are bad? My God.
So my ace support guy, T-Mac, of my minority friends and whatnot, he said if Ravi wants to let his hate for Trev stew, tell him to log into Texas Ags or any A&M message board. And I'm thinking to myself,
We simply can't do that.
self.
Yes, self.
Selfish.
How is A&M mad at Trev?
That's kind of what I'm. So here's the only thing, and this is what I've gotten from some of my perusing on the internets.
I like when you use big words.
I mean, perusing is only 3 syllables.
Listen, I say that all the time. One of the officials who was out at 707 the other day, he sent me a message asking if he needed a dictionary or something. I was like, hey, my fault you can't understand English. And because it's like the vocab isn't like huge.
No.
But sometimes I just think people, I don't know. I just want to say get smarter. Is that what you want to say when I like?
No, because I know you're kind of doing it in jest because you actually know what the words mean. They're just less common words that people don't use all the time.
Right.
And so it's like, I just need people to get a little
peruse.
Yeah, I just need people to, get.
How come you just couldn't be surfing or,
I don't know,
bumping around or?
I've had this problem, quote unquote, my entire life. I literally remember a conversation when I was in like 4th or 5th grade.
Yeah.
Where I was talking to somebody and I used a more complicated or less common word than what most people would use in that situation.
Yeah.
And it was a peer too. It wasn't even like a teacher. They just stared at me and they go, why didn't you just say whatever that word was?
Try being black.
And I'm like, I don't know.
Okay, try being black.
I mean, I was brown in West Omaha. It's the closest they get.
I'm like, really? Like, what do you want me? Like, am I? I don't know.
Like, I'm sorry, I read. My bad. Like, what do you want? Like, you learn new words sometimes.
Yeah, no.
And I felt like peruse was more appropriate than surf or browse.
It's kind of just what you were doing.
Yeah, because I was just perusing.
Uh-huh.
You know, not Parisian, but I was perusing.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
And so, but the one thing that if you want to blame something on Trev, and I don't know,
and you do.
I actually, in this situation, I don't actually. I think it's funny for him, or I think it's funny for me that it's happening to him. I should say.
You're wild.
Because I stay petty, but the only thing
you need a T-shirt.
Stay petty. Yeah.
Hashtag stay petty.
Print the shirts. Let's do this. No, the only thing that I saw that would put any of this on him is apparently when Trev went in and started reshuffling the athletic department, he got rid of some people that Schlossnagel either was close to or liked or whatever, right? So that's the only thing. If you want to pin something on Trev, that's it, right? I also, like when you hire a new athletic director, they're going to hire some new people. That's sort of just how it goes. And maybe Jim Schlossnagel didn't like that. Whatever, right? That's not really here nor there. But that's the only thing I can think of that I've read that makes any sense for why people
you were perusing.
While I was perusing, while I was surfing for the lay people.
So how long has he been there? 2 months? 2.5.
Ooh, longer than that, I think.
I don't listen. It's going fast.
I think it's been like 4.
We're touching July after this weekend. Just tell yourself that.
I don't like that.
We just blew through half the year.
Yeah, we really did.
And I'm still waiting on this dead time for sports.
We're not dead yet,
because maybe knock on wood, it's happening, but in another couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about media days.
Yeah, about a month.
So it's like,
I think Nebraska. I think they wrap up a month from today. Media days.
Yeah. So it's like, what happened?
What are we even
How
doing?
long? So when do you get there? April?
March.
Jeez.
March 18th. It was 3 months, 3 full months.
You just had that in the old Rolodex?
I thought no, I Googled. Yeah. I mean, my recall's good, but that's
if we were perusing.
Yeah, I was just perusing the internet.
So, but 18th to the 18th April, 18th to the 18th May.
Yeah, so
18th to the 18th June. So 3 months.
3 and change, yeah.
How firm a handle do you have on what's going on? Pretty good?
Who, me?
Just as an athletic director.
Oh, probably not. No.
Yeah, and it's not funny anymore because even our national guys are like, yeah, it is different with baseball. We just talked to Phil. He wasn't even one of our D1 plants like Kendall Rogers or Aaron Fitt. And it's like, I just don't know if people like pay enough attention how college baseball does it like no other sport.
Yeah.
They want a guy regardless of where he is. They just go get a guy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
There is no name that's off limits.
Right? So that would just be like going to that'd be like Michigan hiring Nick Saban tomorrow if Nick Saban was still at Alabama.
Yeah. Well, and it was a little we had that stretch where it was like, okay, Kelly to LSU, Lincoln Riley to
I wouldn't even count Rinkin.
Link Jarrett.
What Rinkin? What? Did you ever see? Never mind.
No, probably not.
I think it was He Got Game.
Oh, yeah. I saw
Travis Best Rip was he was singing the song about their high school.
Yeah.
I am Lincoln. What? Walter McCarty? No. Yes.
I've seen He Got Game.
I need affirmation that you were at least.
I have seen He Got Game. I know who Travis Best and Walter McCarty are.
Okay.
Travis Best was a little point guard for Indiana.
Yeah, he was real.
Yeah.
I think he was real.
Yeah, he was. He was in that movie. And I was always a big Travis Best fan because he was like low-key a good backup fantasy point guard.
I liked
he had a nice little game. Didn't he split time with Jamal Tinsley? Wasn't that backcourt? Yeah. I know a little bit of late 90s, early 2000s
but they were so small.
Yeah, they were tiny.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't even know if I would put Lincoln Riley in there yet.
Okay.
I get the star power, like his tenure at Oklahoma was like lightning, right? It was like, like he had this like incredible
But he doesn't have the depth of success, like his history.
Right.
It's pretty
He
short.
had done
still.
it at multiple schools. It's
Yeah.
like, I mean, even South Carolina hiring their baseball coach, right, with Maneri. It's like, wait, what? Oh, that happened quick. Oh, we just snatched a couple coaches on staff too. That, like, it's just college baseball, and I get it. It's big money.
I was like, is it because there's some good jobs out there that probably, I think there's a disparity money wise between.
Look how casual, like Phyllis said yesterday. I don't know. You'd have to. I mean, Brian O'Connor. Like, nothing about Coach O'Connor screams Texas, right?
No.
He's a multi-time national champ winner, but it's like, oh, you just pick up the phone and call.
Yeah.
But in college football, it's like, well, we have to make them say no. You have to at least, like, you talk yourself out of reasons to not even ask.
Yeah, to not even try.
Right?
Well, I remember, like,
college baseball, it's like, hey,
we go get what.
Shoot your shot.
So I wonder, because in college baseball, that seems like there is more of a disparity within good programs of salaries and money, right? Like the SEC all pays crazy money, and there's a handful of other programs that pay SEC money as well. But like, you could be at a good school, and this obviously isn't the case between Texas A&M and Texas, but in the general picture of why really good coaches move so much, I really do think there is gaps between other programs, especially non-major programs, like whether it's like Coastal Carolina, who's had good runs, or ECU, or there's some ACC teams that I'd probably put in that category as well that are good programs that you can get a significant pay raise by going somewhere else. Yeah. And I mean, like, I get, to most of us, $500,000 is a lot of money, and that's what a lot of these guys are making. But going from $500,000 to like $1.5 million, you're tripling your salary.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
You tell that to just about anybody, they're going to have a hard time saying no, regardless of the rest of the situation.
Yeah. No.
And so I think that's a lot of it in college baseball. But man, I really want to talk about how Jim Schlossnagle handled this, because
it was it so poor that it's commanded national attention from people that don't even cover college baseball?
Yes,
that's how bad it was.
But it's not. What's funny about it is it's not an isolated incident either. I'm not talking about with Schlossnagle, but coaches do this all the time, and not just when it's a job thing or whatever, but they will berate media members for asking legitimate questions to things that end up being true. And I'm just here to say, knock it the F off. Part of your job is to be able to handle the media. Don't try and gaslight us into thinking that something isn't true just because you're mad we asked the question. If you believe Kendall Rogers, which I tend to on things like this has been done since before the postseason started. He had a month to figure out how to answer that question, and that's what he came up with. Get mad at the reporter.
And if anybody's close to Texas A&M, it's Kendall Rogers.
Yeah, like, I believe his reporting on this.
Right.
Full stop. He goes, at the highest level, he believes this deal was he's been told by multiple sources that this deal was done between A&M series with Georgia. That's the last thing in the regular series, the regular season, and before the regional round. So during that conference championship week, that's when this happened. That's a month ago. And Jim Schlossnagle can't come up with like, hey guys, like, I'm really just focused on my team right now. Like, we just had our hearts broken. Like, I appreciate, it's always flattering when people are interested in you, but like, I'm just not talking about that right now. Is that a fair answer?
I've heard similar.
Yeah, because from people that aren't idiots. It's not that hard. It's a canned answer. I've never been in this position, and I've got that answer just right off the jump. It's not hard to not be an a-hole in this situation. Yeah. But instead, like, I texted this in our group with Sasha and Shane. I go, he protested too much. I knew he was taking the job as soon as that answer started.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not taking a job, you don't go like, I left my family. It's like, well, kind of.
Hey,
you really want to get into like full custody, not full custody? Like, that's a different conversation, bud.
I always tell people, like, when your radar goes off, right? Again, good liars remember details.
Mm-hmm.
The best liars don't use details.
Don't give any details.
He was doing too much.
He was doing way too much. And then he goes, and then he attacks that he goes from getting defensive to he goes on the attack, that's when you know a guy is full of it, right? He goes, how is that selfish of the reporter to ask that question? That doesn't even make sense. That's not even the right word. Inconsiderate, selfish. Maybe. It's literally there is a rumor about the coach sitting right in front of you. How many people, because these are the same people that get mad when Urban Meyer's on a Fox broadcast and everybody says he's taking the Ohio State job and nobody asks him about the Ohio State job, where that's not even really the place to do it. Like, I sort of understood that. Like, I understand. We're like,
even Cal didn't respond.
Yeah. Like,
he puts his dog in a stroller and goes to chill.
Yeah, he's just like, hey, man, I'm not talking about that right now. Like, thank you, but I'm not talking about that right now. Cool. That's all you have to say. The reporter has to ask the question or he's not doing his job.
Yeah, when Musselman goes to SC, is he like it folded? The canned answer thing is it's pretty standard. Like, we've seen
it's
this.
So easy.
We've seen this in the industry with coaches.
This is not hard to not be a jerk face.
The grandstanding to ultimately do it. Like, do you not know what you're doing?
He probably does, but there's usually a level of arrogance with people like this that think that they can get away with it. Or we've seen that, like, hey, attacking media is kind of low-hanging fruit sometimes. If I just make people mad at the reporter, then they won't care what happens. But guess what? When you take the job the reporter was asking about, like 12 hours after he asked about it, guess what? You're going to look like the idiot. And he does. And it's not just a Schlossnagle thing. Other people do it too, and I need people to stop. It's stupid. Like, you just look like an idiot.
You're mad.
The thing about it is, too, that makes it that, like, you're drawing it was so egregious. Like, number one, and I don't know if coaches worry about this. But it just makes, like, that's why people are skeptical.
Yeah.
Right? That's why people are inquisitive by nature. That's why they ask follow-up questions, because it's not like they haven't been here before. Like, you're again, it was trending last night, and we're talking about college baseball.
Mm-hmm.
College baseball.
Not a thing that is generally trending.
Because the manner in which he handled it was, I don't know.
I mean, it was unprofessional. It was unprofessional.
There's some famous ones, like, I'm not going to.
Roy Williams, I don't give a bleep about UNC right now.
Yeah, like, that's in collegiate sports, it's one of the more famous ones.
And listen, I at least respect that answer. Like, yeah, he got mad at the question, but he didn't berate the reporter. He was just like, hey, I just lost a national championship. I took that as, I don't give a bleep about anything else right now. Like, this is the only thing I'm thinking about right now. And I believe him in that moment that he was. He didn't say he wasn't taking the job. He didn't go grandstanding about, like, I took this job for it to be my last job that I ever take and my family, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, he was just like, I don't give a bleep about UNC right now, which is fair. But she also had to ask the question.
When it comes to that, when it comes to asking the question, and I've said in a couple press conferences, I've said in one with Bo and one with Kirk over at Iowa.
Oh, Bo was bad about it too.
But
remember the whole Miami thing?
Yeah, Bo was bad about it.
But is there like a pecking order, or do report? I'm just asking because I think people
about,
might,
like, who can and can't ask those types of questions.
Who is the one that's going to ask that question? Obviously, all of the reporters know that that's something that needs to be asked. Is there like a?
I did believe Bo about Miami though. He explained it, and I think I'm going to take him.
Oh, not about Miami, even.
because stuff like this happens, right? Sometimes people will call you, and they're asking you about another job.
Sure, yeah.
And it's not even doesn't have anything to do with you.
And sometimes,
but the more you get into it,
well, we happened with Trev and Urban Meyer. Early in the search, Trev was talking to Urban Meyer. I think he was getting his gauge for other people. I don't think Urban Meyer was ever really a candidate, and people either were thrilled or horrified that he was talking to Urban Meyer.
I was talking to a guy asked me about a local job here in November.
Yeah,
it was originally like, hey, keep an eye out.
Yeah,
and then the more we talked, it was, wait, would you be interested in this job?
Yeah,
like that happens.
Yeah,
like that totally. So I kind of think that, but
with Bo, it wasn't even the Miami thing for me. It was about usually stuff on the team. Like, people would ask questions. I think Michael Bruntz got yelled at once by Bo. I don't know. I think everybody got yelled at once by Bo. But they're asking questions about the current team.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I can't even believe, like Bo had a thing with the media, whatever. But he would get super mad at reporters for asking questions that, it's very easy to just be like, hey, like that's an internal deal. We're not going to talk about that.
But it seemed like when it was,
and guess what? It's over. You know what makes it a bigger story? Yelling at the reporter.
But it seemed like when it came to Bo, like there'd be other questions asked before. So I don't know if they kind of warmed up to it.
I do also think you can get a thing. Because one of the things that I can appreciate about Coach Rule is I think I'm well aware of who in the media. How can I say this? I think I have a good. I think I have a good sense in the media of when it comes to football, like who he has respect for and who he doesn't.
I think that's fair,
right? Yeah. Let's just
whose
say
work he appreciates. And
there's varying degrees,
sure.
right? But you could never tell by whose question he answers what way.
If he will,
but I do think coaches do that.
Oh, 100%
locally with media based on who asked the question.
I think a lot of people do that if they don't respect the work.
Like I think Bo unnecessarily was hard on Dirk.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
He didn't respect Dirk at all.
And I just remember like it. And I was kind of in the crosshairs, right? Because I like Bo, but I also like.
You like Dirk. Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, I get it. And we had Dirk on a podcast when I was just doing random, like I kind of missed that because we could talk about things other than sports on that podcast. But
yeah, because we always stick to sports here.
We were just talking about, and Dirk was cool. It's one of the reasons that I like him so much. He just was like, you know what? Like I kind of earned a little bit of that. And so what I've learned to do is, and this is over time, this is somebody that's won multiple awards, right? He's
incredible at what he does.
He's clearly good at what he does.
Really good at what he does.
He found himself being less critical of Nebraska's coaches because he wasn't around as much.
Yeah.
And he's just like,
when you're in it,
he goes, it's just different when you're in it. You feel like, okay, I feel empowered. Like I got some sweat equity in here. I'm watching this every day. I'm going to ask the questions.
Yeah.
Versus, gosh, you know what? I'm not around enough, so I don't feel like just interjecting.
Yeah, you're less quick.
And it doesn't mean he didn't believe it to be true. He just, I just loved the way he said it. And I remember when we were having this conversation on the podcast, I think he just got me to pause.
Yeah.
Right? Because, I'm big, the self-aware. I'm just like,
I appreciate
like
that.
I can really appreciate that approach.
I appreciate that he's willing to take whatever responsibility he
because Bo, he was in it every day.
Yeah, whatever responsibility that he played in that relationship being the way it was. But I'm also not letting Bo off the hook for not handling things better, right? Like we've heard some what I'll just call flat out ridiculous questions asked to Coach Rule, and I get that he's
You think, or you're like you've heard?
Yeah, like in press conferences, I think there's been kind of ridiculous questions asked of Rule.
I want to know.
And he always finds a way. I mean, I'll give you an example. It was at Media Days last year when the non-Nebraska reporter asked him about a Wisconsin game that he didn't coach at like 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And he still found a way to weave that into
was that praying after?
Yeah. It weaved it into an incredible answer about like guys needing to believe in something bigger than themselves and whatever. And like he had no reason to be anything other than like, yeah, I wasn't the coach here then. I have no idea what you're talking about.
What was the famous Bo one? Are you trying to pit me against my brother?
And Carl was like, what are you trying to do? Were you in the locker room?
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. DV, a voracious reader.
I was being serious.
I know, that's why it was funny.
Shane, we're boys, right? All right, so I'm just.
What's up?
I don't wait for him to answer there.
I don't.
Shane, are you and DB boys?
Why you just have to? You just can't, have my peace. So you know how I hate the camera thing, right? For StreamYard. So I almost never
look at it.
Yeah. So I was just reading, and there's advertisements with a QR code, which is unbelievably clever.
Mm-hmm. Those are new.
It's is that a Bill thing? He'd think of something like that. Yeah, weird, right? So there's like this QR code, and I said, I was just minding my own business over here, Shane, just in my own world. I was like, wow, a two-topping $10 pizza from the sports bar on Mondays. I said, that's a heck of a deal. And Ravi goes, yeah, that's a good deal. And I go, man, I should read more. Like, all I'm saying is
It's just funny.
The advertisement caught me off guard. I actually read it, and I said out loud, I should probably read more. And you chuckled like a little schoolgirl.
It struck me as funny that was your takeaway from there being ads in our stream, and that the $10 2-topping pizza. It was
like that's an amazing deal.
Like it seemed like it. So here's what I imagine, right?
Oh boy,
is like you see,
every time I tell you to be careful when you say something, it's like something it's super bad. So like I'm not even gonna say be careful because you couldn't care less.
Is I imagine you read that, you're like, oh man, that's a good deal. And then I imagine this process playing out in your head where you're like, man, what other things have I been missing?
That's what I was thinking.
See, that's what
that's exact.
Like,
so
how many great deals am I missing because I don't read enough?
So do you know why I didn't say that? Do you know why I didn't say that?
Why?
This is 100% on real life. I'm being honest because you said it's a new thing. So I let myself off the hook.
Yeah, it is. It's new. I think
you're like, yeah, it's a new thing. So then I was like, oh shoot,
you're like,
I don't feel so bad.
You're good. But I wasn't talking about
100% what happened.
I wasn't just talking about like in the stream. I just imagine you like walking down the street and be like, oh, billboards, that's a great deal.
Wow.
That's why I laughed so hard because my mind just took it to this whole like this dramatization of DB just like driving in his car and be like, $99 HVAC repair. That's a great deal.
Since I'm just admitting things about myself on this show all the time, I 100% look at all my fast food apps, just to see what deals I'm missing.
Even though you're not going to eat,
even though I'm remotely not even going. But do you know why though? This is so dumb.
Why?
Because I always tell myself, when I start eating different again, I'm going to do this.
I'm going back.
So I hope they still have these deals, as I'm just losing points by the bucket.
You like live vicariously through your future self.
I do.
Which is hilarious.
I know.
It's pretty funny.
So
not as funny as you walking down the street, be like, these billboards are fantastic.
I just thought it was an incredible deal. Like I would do that deal.
It is a really good deal.
2 toppings for $10, and they have a ton of different types. And there's a QR code. I'm not pimping the sports bar necessarily as much as I'm like, number one, anytime you can feed somebody for $10, that's pretty good.
Yeah, depending on how hungry you are, you can feed a couple somebodies with a pizza for $10.
Number 2, I'm a big QR code guy.
You do love a QR code.
Well, it started when I went to a sandwich place, and you were supposed to scan the QR code, and I didn't know how, so I just gave, I'm quick to just give I just gave the dude my phone. I was like, I don't know how this QR code thing works. Can you figure this out for me? And I gave it to him through the drive-thru. He's gone for like 2 minutes, and he brought it back, and he was like, oh, just pull this thing down, and then you can, there's this.
Yeah.
It's in your settings. And I was like, oh, appreciate that. So now it used to bug me when you go to restaurants and they don't have menus, but hey, now QR code me, man. I'm ready.
Now you know how to do it. And you're like, I can do the QR code.
Well, our football team uses it. With like the schedules and calendars.
Now you have to.
Now I'm like, I'm ready.
You're like, I have mastered this 10-year-old technology.
Wow. See? Was the
that was unnecessary. It was unnecessary. I apologize.
I feel like your boy on Old School. Like, are we not in the trust tree anymore? Are we not? Like that wasn't necessary.
I know that was out of pocket. I apologize. Listen, here's the problem.
Okay, short story long. I should read more.
Sometimes
it's fine.
You gotta stop saying that because every time you say it, I imagine you like in Times Square looking at all the billboards and be like, "Oh my God, what a great deal!"
Sometimes though, in public, it does calm my nerves. Just to be more self-aware of my surroundings. Okay, I'm done. All right, I'm good. I'm good.
I'm sorry.
Glad I could make you more.
Problem. So here's the problem that I have. This is a me problem. I'm taking responsibility here. And accountability. You know how important that is to me.
Right.
This dude. Sometimes when there is a joke that I see, I can't not say it. It's a problem.
Yeah.
And I know it's
adults call that self-control. But
yeah.
Hey, I mean,
when it comes specifically to jokes, I have none. If I see a joke, it doesn't matter how mean it is.
Yeah.
And I see an opportunity, I'm like, yeah, I gotta say that joke.
It's good.
So That's a me problem. I acknowledge that. It's not a nice characteristic of my personality. It is funny sometimes. I have my moments where they're pretty good.
Yeah, I can't stand you. I just felt enlightened about a cheap meal, and all of a sudden it turns into.
No, I think it's terrific.
You're winning.
And I just was encouraging people to read more in the last segment so that we had better vocabulary. So there you go. It all comes full circle.
All right.
Much like Creed's last album.
Well, maybe.
That's a deep cut joke that no one's going to get. Brian Christopherson coming up at 8.
He'll get it.
Husker 24/7. We've got Kevin Sjuts from 1011 News in Lincoln at 8:30. And then we will talk to Vinnie Iyer, who covers the NFL for the Sporting News, at 9:45. Going to do a little check-ins on training camps.
Yeah.
Got some stuff going on.
There is. Apparently Russell Wilson is boxing, though.
Yeah, what could go wrong there?
He just likes to stay fit.
Well, that's why he works out in the aisle on airplanes. And
yeah. We're in the dead period, right, for recruiting?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Just don't ask TJ Lateef about it. Because he won't speak on that.
You're not going to get me fired up. You're not going to get me fired up.
How do we feel about guys that like the process a little too much, Damon?
Well, there are some that are worse.
Yeah.
But I get it with quarterbacks.
I do too. I also like.
And plus, I kind of like Nebraska's recruiting. I like how they're doing the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Well, offers a couple years out.
Mm-hmm.
Got some guys in the fold. Now, Lateef is obviously part of that.
Yeah, it's part of the strategy.
It's part of the strategy.
For
so
sure.
It'd be cool if I don't jump to too many conclusions. But
I also just wonder, I mean, is there any part of you that's like, okay, if Dylan Raiola just comes out and is awesome.
Yeah.
And TJ Lateef looks at it and he's like, yeah, I'm not going to play for 3 years. Like maybe he goes somewhere else. Like that's on the table, right?
Yeah, it happens all the time.
So like that's why I don't like because
unless you're like a handful of schools, Ohio State, Georgia, Bama, and apparently Tennessee and Ole Miss now, and who else seems to stockpile?
Ole Miss doesn't really do it that much out of high school, though.
No, I know, but
their
sure
transfer portal they do for sure.
It's incredible.
But it's weird. Like for as good as Kiffin is, maybe he just doesn't like dealing with young kids, and he's like, yeah, I'm just going to deal with the 22-year-olds.
Yeah, I don't know, but he seems to always have options at quarterback.
100%. But yeah, like outside of
I guess I'd want to go play for him.
I mean, even like Oregon gets Galen Gabriel and Moore and Dante Moore, which is a lot of people at the time were like, oh, that's kind of weird that Moore would choose to go back up Gabriel for a year. We assume, but who knows? Maybe not. But
it's weird too because Lanning's turned out to be, at least this is early, and I'm not like going to rest in this because I've changed my mind about how I feel about people, some to the good, some to the bad. Lanning doesn't appear to be all that likable when I listen to him sometimes, and I listen to him quite a bit. I do like the fact he is a guy that will protect his own, though. So
I feel like he's not very charismatic. I don't find him unlikable.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't do anything that gives me, you know how I get with people where it's like that guy just gives me bad vibes. He doesn't give me that. I just don't think he's terribly like engaging with the outside, and I don't think he cares to be. But it seems like he seemed pretty honest. Like when the Alabama job came up, he said, "Yeah, I'm not going to Alabama. I love it here," and he stayed there. Like I'll give him credit for being fairly straightforward.
Or like when teams make him mad heading into a competition, like he's not afraid to talk reckless.
Yeah, I mean it's not reckless when you go out and put like 42 points up in the first half.
Yeah. Hey, remember what I said? You guys were giving me a hard time on Tuesday. No, but I do got to ask PC because we were just singing Donnie's praises and linemen are just falling by the wayside. But that happens when you shoot for
the big guys,
high-end guys.
We'll get to that and more coming up on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I don't know if DB's going to make it through the whole show today.
I'm out.
He's,
Yeah, your buddies piling on.
I feel personally attacked.
Sometimes I just say things out loud. It's fun.
No, I do too. I say dumb stuff out loud all the time.
I didn't even use the D word.
No, I was calling myself.
Oh,
I'm saying I say dumb things.
I feel
out
like
loud.
you were kind of intimating that.
No, I think what you said was true. It's a good deal.
Yeah.
And reading about good deals is good. But my mind, because I'm goofy, when you said I should read more, I just had this whole like scene play out in my head that was really funny to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm a weirdo. I get it. It's fine.
Good. Appreciate your support.
You know, I'm trying to be, you know,
A lot of Bartles and James moments.
I'll take it.
I don't even know what that means.
Again, old guys commercial. Appreciate your support.
There's wine coolers.
Well, that's definitely in your wheelhouse.
No, I'm a seltzer guy. How dare you?
Close enough. So before I was
it was old guys sitting on a porch drinking wine is what it was. Wine
coolers.
Yeah.
So I don't even think they make those anymore. I think seltzers is the thing.
So
now.
what is I don't even know what a wine cooler actually is. Like I never had one.
So Shane, were Bartles and James the most famous?
I would say probably.
There were
Seagrams. Wasn't there Seagrams or something?
Was that a wine cooler? Because there's still a Seagram's brand, but I think it's like water.
No, I think it's a spritzer.
Oh, maybe that's right. Yeah, maybe a spritzer. I was thinking.
I'm not sure. Like that's one thing. That's interesting because that's one thing.
Oh, it's a gin. They make gin.
Seagram's?
I think so.
Oh yeah, like guys that look like me used to just call it bumpy face, and then it morphed into naughty head.
It looks like they still make some sort. Seagram still makes something that resembles a wine cooler.
So you don't have any idea what that is?
Not really. Like I've heard of them. I obviously know
that's interesting.
It was like one of those. Is it like a Smirnoff kind of?
What's a Smirnoff? I just know it as a vodka.
Okay, so they've got the like little bottles. It's like
oh
the
yeah,
Smirnoff
sometimes
Ice.
on a humbug, like when I was in the neighborhood, I
Mhm.
would get an apple one.
Yeah, is it kind of like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, fruit juice.
Okay, I know what that is.
Basically fruit juice.
That's just, so it's just alcoholic fruit juice.
Yes,
Is all a wine cooler is?
Yes.
Why do they call them wine coolers? Doesn't even make sense.
Good question.
Because it's not like wine at all.
It was light and refreshing.
beautiful question.
Now you just have 222 different seltzers.
Okay,
But,
and then you still
before
have
that,
you still
like
have
this is the 80s and the 90s, right, Shane? This is wine coolers.
Yeah.
It's funny too because that's one of those things, and
Definitely 80 or 90s.
I was just talking about this with my coaches since we're sticking to sports, but not really this segment.
We hardly ever do.
There are just some things. Like, can you think of something in your head when it is good?
Mhm.
It is amazing.
Mhm. And when it's bad, it's
when
horrifying.
it's bad, it is
the worst.
The worst.
Yeah. I don't have an example off the top of my head, but I know exactly what you're talking. Like I've had that feeling.
Yeah, like breakfast sausage.
Sure. Yeah. That's a great example. When it's good, it's
when it's
incredible.
good, it's incredible.
And when it's bad, it's
like
really, really bad.
I can't believe they sold this.
That's how I feel about
when it's bad, it's bad.
That's how I feel about steak. Like if you give me like an overdone steak or something, like I just have no interest in it whatsoever. Like it doesn't even.
I feel like that.
I won't eat it.
I feel like that with cheese.
Sure.
Good cheese is amazing.
Oh, elite.
Bad cheese,
No interest in it whatsoever.
You're hitting the toilet.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like you're dry heaving.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's fair.
I think that's kind of how I feel about those types of
like the fruity drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean like if you're including like a Smirnoff Ice, or
you have something with that kind of range that you absolutely love. Like I love breakfast sausage.
I probably do.
By the way, there's a particular grocery store that's got it going $2.99 a pound.
Honestly, that's how I feel about basketball.
You do get mad though.
I get mad about bad basketball. Like when basketball is bad, it makes me viscerally angry in a way I cannot explain.
By the way, you can get Seagram's Escapes. It's a
that's what they are.
Yeah, that's why.
You get a variety pack, I guess.
Is that in your wheelhouse?
That's why
no,
I asked
that's
about
the first time I've learned of
Smirnoff
it.
because they look.
That's probably a fib.
They look kind of like Smirnoffs. That's why I asked about because I was googling Seagram's and I saw those. I was like, oh, they kind of look like a Smirnoff.
Yeah. I'm not drinking the Calypso Colada.
That seems like right up your alley, man.
Pot meat kettle.
I don't like this.
Really? How you have the nerve to say that to him?
Hey, it might be right up my alley too. Although I don't like the ones that are super sugary anymore because they make my tummy hurt.
Oh, let's not use that word.
They make my tum hurt. Is that better? They give me the belly ouchies.
It's incredible.
What would you like me to say? They give me intestinal discomfort, DB. Is that better?
Why is it you're perusing for another term for a stomach ache? Wow. Dude,
I don't like how my tum feels.
Amazing Daniel says on the stream he's talking about the hard lemonade. Jack Daniels had like the hard lemonade and stuff like that.
Well, so did Mike's. So Mike's like when I first started drinking like a
that would be kind of a
Smirnoff or a Mike's
an
Hard
upper
was
level
like
of
a
it.
soft entry into alcohol.
So over the break, just go to YouTube and Google Bartles and James commercials.
Okay.
And it's just two old guys
on a porch,
sitting on a porch.
See, two old guys sitting on a porch drinking fruit juice. I'm all like, let's do it.
Kind of gives you
that's
weird
gonna be me and
Southern plantation vibes, but
it
was a crisp, refreshing drink during that time.
Listen, I like a crisp, refreshing drink. They're delicious. There's too much sugar in some of those, though. That's why I like the seltzers. They don't have much sugar.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
Steve is on to something though, because I did buy Boone's Farm, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you I didn't, but it was cheap.
Yeah.
Anytime like you could get a bottle for like $3, you're just cracking yours. See the stream. Our stream is dangerous.
TK goes, does it cause anal leakage?
Boy, that's a deep cut.
You can't say leakage.
That's how you know he listens every day.
I didn't talk to Shane for 3 days. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Like I cut him off.
You can't say leakage.
Like, how is that the word that bothered you out of that whole thing? Like, yeah, I cut him off. Similar to what I'm going to do to you here shortly.
No, it's fine.
But aren't you a little bit curious, though, when you're shooting for the big fish? And I do want to talk about this with BC.
Yeah, we'll get into real stuff at some point, probably.
So, Kalanti Abalu is probably not trending Nebraska's way. You got, seems like, Mills committed to Texas. Shout out to T-Mac. Sanders is out. Utu yesterday or day before yesterday.
Yeah,
it was on the bottom line. Too. That's how you know.
I think it
went to Tennessee.
Who's the one that went to Oregon State?
That was just last night. Oh, Tapu.
Yeah, Tapu. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Went to Oregon State. Yeah, it's a bad run. It's a bad run on the offensive lineman. But again, you should.
Scholl went to Auburn.
Yeah.
Who else was in?
Wasn't Scholl the D lineman though?
No.
Who was the D lineman in that
Scholl
group?
was O-line that moved.
The guy
Missouri
from Tallahassee
to Tulsa.
was in.
Oh, that
was the D lineman.
Yeah,
okay. They were all in on the same visit though with Sanders.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
and his recruitment is just getting started.
Well, and that's the risk of taking big shots.
Yeah.
You take big shots, sometimes you're going to miss big.
And I'm just going to go back to that presser, right? It's, they evaluate as well as anybody. And sometimes you can shoot your shot,
but not to put all your eggs in that basket.
Right.
I think that's what people are worried about.
So then
is that fair?
But I think two things can be true at once. So that you can also appreciate the fact, and maybe I think they're kind of offended by the diamond in the rough thing.
Yeah.
But you can also find guys that may be off the grid.
Yeah.
A smidge.
And listen,
their eval process is the eval process. It's just a little clearer when a guy's highly ranked. And don't get it twisted. There's some highly ranked guys
that they have no interest in
that don't really move their needle.
Yeah.
They'll play the game, but don't really move their needle.
Yeah. I think that's totally fair. And I think there's much lower ranked guys that they get really excited about, like genuinely excited.
Yeah.
Not because I think we look.
Were you surprised to see Hofkin settle in at the end?
Only just because the initial reports were offensive line, but for his current size and age, it probably makes more sense because he's only in like his 250, 260 range.
Yeah.
And he's 22. So he's probably like putting weight on him is probably harder than on an 18-year-old. And if you like the way he moves and bends, then like DN kind of
tell that to Joe Alt.
Well,
they're banking on that.
Yeah.
He's just a pup.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still going to grow.
For sure.
But yeah, you're
right. But it's harder at 22 than it's 18.
Yeah.
And
I wonder, like, what the scale, like their DEXA and all the stuff that they do for that. I wonder what the difference is when you fast forward it
in 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting, because I'm just making
because you probably don't have a ton of comps.
No, of like, hey, they're 22. They haven't really been in a waiting a strength and conditioning program yet. Yeah. What's that look like? Yeah, I wouldn't imagine. You'd probably have to. I'm not making a joke here. You probably have to go to BYU, where you got some guys that start older because of the mission. You get a lot of like 20, 21, some 22-year-olds that are coming back to college football. That's probably the place you'd have to go to get that info.
But they'd have to kind of do it similarly.
Yeah, they'd have to run similar systems to get an idea on it. But I don't know where else you're getting untrained 22-year-olds in college football,
Slim to none.
Yeah, pretty much nowhere.
I was looking at, you brought up Oregon State. And because I was having this discussion online about like just data and rushing the football and running it when you need to, and just a total rabbit hole. And I was talking to my guy Stetson, and we were comparing just some data. And so I went back and looked at a few things in the red zone and rushing. And we think Smith's a good coach out at Oregon State, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Was. They're top 5 in the red zone in the country.
Really?
Yes, they were.
Wouldn't have guessed that high.
Yeah. Yeah. You know how many trips Nebraska had in the red zone last year?
How many?
29. You know how many trips Michigan had in the red zone last year?
A lot more than that.
66.
Yeah, I was going to guess about double. That's a lot.
And there's a huge difference about running with 40-some rushing touchdowns.
Yep.
There's a difference between running the ball when you want to and running the ball when you need to. It's incredible when you get inside the numbers.
We will get to that and more coming up next. We got Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is Husker 24/7 senior writer, Brian Christopherson.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit of a circus act.
Brian Christopherson.
Well, I mean, that's pretty interesting.
Brian Christopherson.
I kind of enjoy that.
Here is Brian Christopherson.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DBM Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We are joined now by Brian Christopherson of Husker 24/7. What's up, BC?
How you guys doing?
Oh, just working on my security, my sense of self-worth. Just a lot of mental exercise working with my partner these days. BC, how about you?
I could see.
You probably don't have
man.
to worry about that. You work with a bunch of solid guys, kind of uplifting.
Oh, Brunson's sarcastic AF. Come on. And Shafe gets pettier than I do.
Yeah, we're not in person a lot, though. We're usually at our own houses, working from a distance, so that probably helps things.
Yeah, you're not staring at him for 3 hours.
You gotta look at that guy's face 8 feet from you. That's tough.
So I stood with him for probably, 30 minutes with all these footballs flying around us.
Schaefer, not me.
On Friday. Well, I didn't really talk to you, but you were there too. But Friday at 7-on-7, like literal boots on the ground. I mean, this dude was taking notes, just writing his brains out on Friday, man. I was like, you know what? I kind of appreciate that vibe, Shafe. I like that about you.
Yeah, boots on the ground. That's good. Good to see that. I was not out there. I was in my air condition. So credit to you guys.
Hey, so we were talking.
It wasn't too bad out.
This is on the heels of, and I love that he said it. Coach Rule talking about, he made the comparison in evals with Ohio State, and when they do it and they get their 4 and 5 star guys on campus early, as freshmen and sophomore, they see them too. But when Nebraska does it, and I mean, the rest. And so, and I love that approach because he says, you know what, we evaluate as well as anybody. And I looked at that and I thought of it immediately with the run on offensive linemen that they had on campus, but are starting to trend or even commit so much to other places. And I'm like, is that going to have to be kind of the balance and the beauty of Nebraska's approach, right? You're going to swing for top guys. You're not going to shy away because you believe in what you do, but you're also going to have an eval process where you may actually get some guys that, and I hate to use Damon in the rough because he obviously kind of bristled up at that,
Yeah.
but like some guys that may be off the radar too, right? That's just going to kind of be their balance.
Yeah, that's part of it. Plus, it's just the ebbs and flows of recruiting. I mean, you use running back as an example. Like, there's these stretches where it's like, what's going on there? Who's coming in? And then, you end up landing Parker. And, Mekhi Nelson's an interesting ad, kind of in a string of like a month. And so that changes the whole dynamic of the room. It feels like it does come in waves sometimes at a position. It's sort of like watching Minnesota Twins baseball. They'll win 7 in a row, and then you lose 4 in a row. Sometimes you're in that streak where you have, 2 or 3 linemen that sign up in about a month span, and then you have that stretch where nothing's happening. But I was just looking at it because I know we really pumped up Donnie last week, and so then this week it's like, what's going on with Donnie? Because they didn't get those guys. And I was just to remind people though, okay, this is the 24 class. Grant Bricks, Gibson Pyle, Preston Tamua, Landon Davidson, Jake Peters, Rugaroli. That's 6 guys. 23, Gatula, Knutson, Sledge, Tyler Kanak, Ben Scott was a transfer addition. Jacob Hood was in there too. And Machachek is also, I believe, on the O-line now, if I'm thinking right on that. So that's...
Mazuka's in there.
Yeah, he is. Mazuka's in there. So with Mazuka in there, that's 14 names in the last, 2 cycles. So all I'm saying is if there's someone who's a little panicked today and they're like, oh, man, what's happening with this class? I understand that. You can have that discussion. But it's not like that building over there isn't pretty heavy with a lot of young prospects who are building right now. When you talk about positions where the numbers aren't exactly wanting, I don't think it's necessarily the O-line. And if you think about even a year before the years I mentioned, Justin Evans comes in 1 year before that, and I think he's got some good football ahead for the Huskers. Obviously, you've got to, after this season, kind of work in who's the next in line after Ben Hart and Ben Scott. But for the most part, a lot of returners are coming back, you would think. So all in all, the O-line room is in pretty solid shape as far as the numbers go and the potential to develop. That's not to say you wouldn't love to add a big fish or two here still, and we'll just see how it plays out now.
BC, so to not put too fine a point on it here, you are not concerned that the sky is falling with the offensive line recruiting.
Well, I'm not, but I mean,
You're a child.
I don't mind.
You're
I
a
don't
child.
mind that. I don't mind that sometimes we have, we come in and have a discussion about like, hey, what's going on here? We're usually pretty positive about things within that program, I would say, in this media market. So I can understand when a few people are like, hey, what about this over here? And it'd be nice if they had landed one of those. I mean, I loved like John Mills. Like John Mills just looked like a Big Ten lineman to me the whole way, and he ends up at Texas. So you see a guy like him or Scholl, and you're thinking that would have been a nice add to what they've got, a nice compliment. So it is disappointing when Nebraska loses on some of those. But as Damon's point was well made, that's sort of the price of doing business when you're going up against the same type of linemen the other powerhouse schools are really in on. So it's you and like two or three really other good options. You're going to lose sometimes. Yeah, and
BC, I kind of joke, but I also think it's a little, people kind of talk out of both sides of their mouth, where they're like, oh, why are we only going after these 3 stars or whatever? Then you go after the 5 stars and you're not going to land most of those. And then they're like, oh, what's happening? We're not getting any recruits. It's like it's sort of the other side of the coin there, where it's like, hey, you're going to take some shots if you're going to go for higher end guys. Most of those guys aren't going to say yes. You sort of have to be able to deal with the quote unquote failure rate of going after big time guys. Especially if you don't want to sit here and just be like, oh, well, I guess we're going to develop some 3 stars, which I'm not even saying is a bad thing. It just seems like people those same people get frustrated about both ends of that spectrum.
Yeah, and kind of connected with that diamonds in the rough quote last week. I was talking with Caden.
I loved it.
Yeah, that was fun. And Caden Vermoss loved it too. I was doing an interview with him after his official visit. I like Caden's a good guy.
Yeah, Miller North guy comes from good stock.
And I was talking about him. He's extremely likable.
Yeah. That's funny, Ravi. I told Bruns, I said, Caden says he's going to call me back in an hour or so for an interview. And Bruns has said he's a Miller North guy. His word is his bond. So
Brunsy knows. So,
he was right. Caden called right back about what he said he would. But he was listening to those guys listen, to those press conferences. That's what's interesting. A lot of recruits they listen to Rule's whole deal. I think he's a engaging enough speaker that even the prospects will tune in for like a half hour and see what's he talking about this week. And he had that diamonds in the rough quote, and I think he reiterated it to Caden, and I think Jackson Carpenter was the other who was alongside him. And he was just telling those 2 guys, he's like, look, because you guys are here, you're going to be viewed as maybe in that diamonds in the rough category, basically. But basically, we think you're the type of prospect who, if you're playing at Modern Day or wherever, somewhere down at one of those, powerhouse programs, you're like a 4-star guy and you've got 35 offers. That's what we think of your talent. Don't think otherwise for a second. And so I think that that quote, whatever people took from it, it meant something to some guys listening. I can tell you that much, who associated with it and understand what he's talking about there. So that was an interesting perspective to hear somebody who is directly connected to the actual line.
Because you bring up Jackson Carpenter, and I said this when he first said yes, and this is just primarily because I'd seen him up close. We played against him as a sophomore, so I'm just watching him warm up, and I mean, film clearly said he was their guy, and in a more prolific or pass-happy offense in another state, Carpenter's measurables would stack up against anyone. They just would. He's sleek. He can high point a ball. He's tough. He's got a wiry frame. He's fast. There are a lot of things to like about him. And, because it's right there in your backyard, 12 miles from campus, it's like, well, hometown. I'm like,
yeah, people assume it's a homer offer.
Yeah. His numbers are comparable to anybody else, just not the statistics.
Yeah, you talk about a both sides conversation that happens. It's with a guy like Jackson Carpenter where someone's like, oh, that's a hometown offer, and the poo-poos it. And then if a player like that gets, Iowa's on the doorstep knocking or somebody.
Isn't it weird?
Why didn't Nebraska offer him?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
So then if they end up going elsewhere.
Or K-State will, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or even if there's a dog fight for him then to land them, that conversation becomes like, oh, maybe that offer should have come in a little quicker and all that. So I'm not – this is what comes with fandom, and we're following this stuff. That's part of the deal. But some of those things are pretty interesting, how the tone of the conversation can flip rather quickly, I would say.
You know what will be curious is I think we may have to reevaluate too, because I think sometimes there's this tendency. I do think in 2024 we're more apt to say, okay, Iowa they are tough evaluators, so that offer me. I think we've turned that corner.
Mm-hmm.
We still don't respect it when it's an offensive guy though, because of their offensive prowess. But I do think,
unless it's a lineman, we like it when they offer linemen.
I do think we may have to adjust our train of thought with Kansas State, because quietly those programs are starting to win more than they lose, and they're winning more than we are. So I'm not we better be careful, right, about not understanding that these guys are pretty good too. Like if Missouri comes in and makes an offer, it's not. Well, it's Missouri. It's no Missouri. Wins
a good
lot,
SEC school.
Wins a lot of games.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, I don't know. I just think we have to recalibrate what teams within the region are doing around us too.
BC, I'm even to the point where like if NDSU or SDSU makes an offer to a guy, I'm like, Nebraska probably needs to be knocking on that door.
Oh yeah, that's another. Yeah, I can see.
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, that's a.
I mean, watch South Dakota State play along the D line.
Yeah, that's. And like, I'm
and
not
those
saying
guys those guys are getting drafted.
I'm not saying they have to offer all those guys, but you better make sure.
Yeah, you gotta be on it, and that's the thing where I would say about the staff. I feel like they're doing a thorough evaluation. Where if they haven't offered somebody yet, it's not because it's like they just haven't done the footwork. I think that's the part where I think people should be comforted by. I feel like they're putting in the legwork to learn about guys. And I think there's some prospects even locally who they didn't just walk out of camp or June with a Husker offer yet, and they've been offered other places. But that doesn't mean the story is necessarily over. We're talking about some 26 guys who were told, we just want to see a little bit more of your film into the fall, and then there might be some noise there. So I like that part of it. I do think they put as much intentionality into their camps as they advertise. And I think most prospects walk away believing that to be true. And so that's the key part, is just that fairness process of your routine and how you go about that. And I think most recruits I talk to seem to think they're given a fair shake for the most part. And that hasn't always been the case. So that's a good thing.
So this recruiting profile, while we're on it, seems to include like recruiting like well-rounded young men, right? Like they just don't like, it's very few grade things. It's just the portfolio seems complete, right? Not just the athletic side when they're doing their due diligence. Something or nothing in my head that this seems like a team that gets along, right? I think it's very understated because most of us aren't around enough, but this team strikes me as a team that gets along very well. And I think there's something to that. There's got to be intentional on Nebraska's part, right? Like recruiting guys and getting guys in the program that fit within the culture.
Yeah, that's something. And I know it always seems like we're pumping the positive when I'm on here, but every recruit I talk to, almost every one of them, talks about family at Nebraska. And if you look around and look at updates at other programs, that's not always the case where that's just like the common go-to line. Like there are certain go-to phrases recruits always use. And like, I think people at this point are kind of worn out. The facilities are unbelievable. Don't get me wrong, but people want more than that line about like, oh, the facilities are shiny. But the thing that is a constant is those guys recruits will say those players, they truly like each other, like you're saying. It feels like a family with the coaches. And the other part of it is there's an expectation that this is going to happen. That is success. And a lot of recruits say there's just like a sort of vibe in the air over there that even though this is a program that hasn't been to a bowl game since 2016, this staff and those players right now are so fired up for this season, and there's just an expectation like, yeah, this thing's going to turn the corner. Do you want to be a part of it or not? Because it's gonna happen. Don't even ask that if it is. So that's what a lot of guys are walking away thinking. And if you can back that up now this season, it is key. Because you can lose that momentum if you throw a 5-7 out there again or something like that. Then people start to get a little nervous about it and be like, okay, there's another one of those. But if they throw 8 wins or something out there and just confirm what sort of these recruits have thought on their visits, I think that can only pick up steam.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. Let me throw a little negativity into the bunch since apparently we're too positive. Or some potential negativity. So, as I'm thinking about this in-state,
you don't have to. It's okay.
As I'm thinking about this in-state recruiting process, right, and how they are doing the work, they're putting the work in, they're with the camps and their evaluations and everything like that. There's some guys, like you said, that they're probably still not going to offer that have offers from places like Iowa and Kansas State and maybe Iowa State and other good programs around the area. Do you think the fact that they put in the work gives them some grace with people that they're like, hey, we just didn't think it was a good fit? Or if that guy goes and pops off somewhere else, is it worse because they didn't just miss him? They're just like, he's not good enough, and they missed.
Oh, if a local guy ever goes,
we're gonna have to have one of those as a test, as a case study.
Yeah, because it could go either way, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good
no,
question.
If a local guy ever goes anywhere and gets rolling a bit, you're always going to hear about it every Saturday. I mean, think about like Drew Ott or somebody from Iowa, like in I say recent years. Some of this isn't that recent anymore, but they go over there and they make a play or whatever on a Saturday, and the whole like Twitter would just explode about it. Husker Twitter, like, oh, seeing so and so did this and that. So you're always going to hear about it. And I understand the point. You're saying that is it double emphasis now because we're saying they do such a good job looking at guys and they didn't offer him right away. Yeah, there will be some of that. So you got to live with your evaluations. But part of that is something we talk about a lot on this show is there's just a lot more prospects to choose from, or there always have been, but now other schools are recognizing that in the state of Nebraska. So you are not going to be able to get them all, or it just won't happen that way. There's going to be a few maybe you don't feel quite as strongly about, or they just pick somewhere else. And that's just part of the deal when you have a state that I think has really picked up in how other programs are viewing recruiting it. And, you're just seeing it with, as Damon mentioned, Kansas and Kansas State. Kansas used to be a program.
It's just not those aren't dirty words. Like, they're legit, man.
Kansas used to be a program where if you wrote like, okay, this guy was offered by these 8 schools. Sometimes I admit I'll like write like the bigger schools at the front of that list because those are the ones the guy's in on. And Kansas would have been like 7th or 8th.
Mm-hmm.
You can no longer say that anymore. The way they've started to build that program, and definitely not with Kansas State. So. It's a different game as far as like I think there's just better programs closer to Nebraska that feel like they can get in and get a guy or two. And I think there's now a better understanding, man, there's a lot of talent there in a state that really loves football. We got to look into it because Nebraska can't have them all. And especially if there's some roster size change at some point, limit rule, that could impact matters a little bit too on that front.
I just, and to that point, right. I mean, Ty Good went to Notre Dame. Trevor Robinson went to. There are some guys, right, from a long, long time ago where you saw some big name schools, but the last handful of years, probably 6 or so, I'll go back to like 18, 19, where you see Auburn, USC, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Penn State. There are some schools that are making routine stops in the state
Mhm.
now that we're just unaccustomed to seeing. So I think if you kind of buoy the expectation level, at worst, you got to say, there's probably some pretty good players here, right? Like
and
the hometown thing. It's nice to say out loud, but it's increasingly difficult.
Mhm.
oh, it is.
You have to win.
Yes, you do. And I mean, to think about it locally, the last 6 or 7 years, it's even harder to recruit locally when you haven't won, because these kids are around. I mean, we talk football in this state on the radio and every podcast, all day long. So these guys hear like everything about the years where it's been 5-7, 4-8, and all the negativity that can come with that, or should come with that, actually. And so, there's going to be some of those kids during that era who are going to be like, why am I going to go over there? That's not exactly been a fun ride lately. So it is key this year to make that move that people kind of, I think, are hoping is going to happen, where you put it in front of them and see, yep, they are climbing a rung up the ladder. It's actually true. They've got that guy now, and maybe that changes the dynamic even for a few local guys. You're also going to lose a couple to Iowa here and there, but the other part of that is you might take 2 or 3 from Iowa too. You might take like a Jake Peters or somebody out of that state that you really like. Nebraska right now is trying really hard
Hawthorne,
to take
maybe.
Will Hawthorne right out of Iowa
Mhm.
State's backyard, and Iowa State, has got a good head coach too that's respected. So, if Nebraska wins that one, people should be like, wow. I mean, that would be one where
because he's he comes across as a huge Cyclone fan.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough fight because of that. I wouldn't necessarily predict Nebraska, but they gave them a lot to think about. I'll say that much. So, it goes both ways on that.
Yeah, I think kind of one of my litmus tests is going to be the Dawson Merritt kind of Christian Jones thing, and it's not one against the other, but one's the hometown guy. The one is, for whatever the reason, seems to be sexier, and it kind of it bugs me a little just because we almost know too much about the local guy, so we almost use that against him. And I know it sounds easy. Well, you coach him DB and you're going to defend him. There's just this natural inclination to think that somebody's local, right? And there's this kind of this hometown handshake, and I'm like, sometimes these guys are just good, right? Like, it doesn't matter really where they're from. Sometimes they're just good.
It's pressure to recruit locally, and it is there's pressure for a local recruiting target, as you know full well, Damon. I mean, that's another side of it. I admire those kids because it's hard when you're 16 years old and suddenly you got people in the state analyzing
your every move, right?
Yeah. So it's an interesting deal.
That's Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7 BC. We appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, B.
We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio and Kevin Sjuts from 1011 News in Lincoln.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, live on the Pillar Exterior stage. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. We are joined now by Kevin Sjuts of 1011 News in Lincoln. Kevin, what's up?
Good morning and greetings from Orlando, Florida, boys.
Baseball. Is it baseball?
No, we've got AAU Volleyball Nationals. The 16U division just wrapped up on Monday, getting a couple extra days of little vacation down south. It's warm, but strangely, it's warmer back home, apparently.
I forget you're involved in that world like elbow deep. So I got to ask you, just because you made me think of it, because we were talking about recruiting, and we got into this. Was this a couple of weeks ago? We were talking about how volleyball typically doesn't miss. So, Kevin, you know, it's we were trying to project guys, and we were talking about rules, philosophy, and I'm like, God, just some sports get it right. Even baseball, when colleges, they'll continually recruit over early high school offers and stuff. What is it do you think about volleyball where the evals typically hold up?
Oh, man, that's a great question, DB. Volleyball recruiting is so different than football, baseball, some of the other sports. Volleyball classes are small, you know, like it's maybe a rarity for a program like Nebraska to bring in the 5 girls they brought in a few years ago. Usually a class is 3, 4, and 5 or 6 are on the high end. And I think volleyball-wise, there's so much out there. There's so many camps. There's so many club tournaments. I think these coaches have a pretty good handle on who they want to get after before, the recruiting cycle really even opens up. And I think more times than not, you know who the good players are, and they end up being really good players. For instance, I think it might have been Saturday. I was watching. So my wife's old club coach from Illini Elite in Illinois, he's still running the club. He had a team here at Nationals. We're watching them. They're in the open division. And on the court was Miami, Kentucky, Stanford, Ohio State, Colorado. It's just everybody. And there's a 6'5", 16-year-old that's playing middle blocker and just crushing the ball. I'm pretty sure she's going to be a really good Division I volleyball player. She was awesome.
Okay. So like Nebraska they got Jaden Robinson to say yes, I think last week or I think it was last week. And I get it. Like they nail it. What happens in volleyball where when players commit, and she's 2026, does it seem like in volleyball the other coaches kind of lay off recruiting them once they say yeah? Because I don't hear about or see a lot of flipping. Now, lately, I have seen some big-time players hit the transfer portal, but it does seem like coaches typically respect early commits, like verbals.
I think that's 100% true.
Okay.
You don't see a whole lot of decommitting in volleyball. And I think part of it is, again, it seems like some of these girls are on the fast track to a specific university at such a young age. So they will hold true. They will get on campus. They will play there. Now, that's where the portal changes everything. And, I was even talking to one Division I coach within the past few days, and he said, this recruiting cycle, it's a little bit different. It seems like the cycle is a little different year to year, and there are just more girls committing early. And he knows of even a few that have committed without even going on campus. To me, that is wild. And to him, he was even saying, like, this is crazy. We're recruiting girls, and we're seeing girls that we're going after, and they're choosing school Y, even though they've never gone there.
So have you seen, like, the Siglers of the world and Jaden Robinson? Like, do you ever see them up close?
Oh, yeah.
That's
Man,
incredible.
There was one time, this would have been maybe 2 years ago, guys. I was at a club tournament for my daughter. I think it was a regional tournament down in Kansas City. And there was a girl about a court or two away from my daughter. And this young lady was just murdering the ball. And like everybody, like you would just hear the ball.
The second time we've heard murder.
Like, you were like, she murdered the ball. It did not live. No, like, and I looked her up on the website and everything, and I shot a text message to John Cook, and I said, if you haven't heard about this one, you might want to learn the name. And he goes, already know. I mean, holy cow.
Shocker.
But, 5 steps ahead. So I watched Gabby DeVita at Nationals here. And let's just say they set her the ball every opportunity possible, and for good reason, because, if I'm going to use my word again, she murders the ball. Yeah. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. We're talking with Kevin Sjuts from 1011 News in Lincoln. All right. So, Kevin, what's the itinerary in Orlando now that you're on vacation mode? Like, are we doing?
Did you bring everybody?
Oh my goodness, we've got grandparents. We
got multi-generational here. Let's go.
Yeah, we've got the boys. We got my old family. We got some baseball hitting in down here. Found a nice field in Celebration, Florida, with a beautiful cage. Got some cuts in. But to answer the question, we got my immediate family. We've got grandparents here, and that's kind of the case with our entire team. There were so many grandparents along. All the siblings were here. So, we kind of took over the resort pool a couple of days, and a lot of football is thrown around. It's been a blast. The itinerary is today's travel day. We're at the end of the road, but we got a day in Disney. We got a day on the beach yesterday. We got to watch the NASA we were over by Cape Canaveral, and they sent a satellite up into space yesterday. Got to watch it. It was totally awesome, and we were close to the U.S. Space Force, where they trained some guys for that, and we had a Black Hawk go directly above us while we were in the ocean, and it was like goosebumps. Came out of nowhere, and that thing is, I don't know, 50 feet above our heads, and it was like, that is cool. So sorry, we're not doing any sports talk here. I'm
That's
just
all right.
I do want to know about, because that recruiting thing I'm always fascinated by, and I know there's lots of theories, right? Sometimes people, well, it's easy to kind of peg young women and their development and their physical maturation. I hear all these things, but it just seems like a gentle person recruited sport. And I'm like, I'm just curious. And on the heels of last week, were you surprised that we got such a treat? And that might have been one of his better. He's had some doozies, but Coach Rule meeting with the media late last week. You ever met a guy that every time he talks, even though we love to hear him speak, gives us something different to chew on?
It's almost like he calls like everybody together just because he has something that's on his heart or mind and he wants to share. So, like, hey, you know what? I don't want to just tell my wife this. Let's get everybody together. The cameras are rolling. The guys are in the seats. We all got to hear it. So, usually it's, football. We don't think much about it in the summer outside of, Joe Beercan wanting to talk about how many wins they're going to have and which bowl game they might go to. But we actually get substance in the summer. I think that's good. It's refreshing. And if you're going to talk about availability for football in the summertime, we got to talk about Kristen Coggan doing a cooking demonstration for the media. Like, that was the coolest thing ever, guys.
Yeah, Gus Felder. I love how he's so appreciative of his support staff, because so far they've been incredible. Right? It's like they're not winning and no one wants to leave. There has to be something said to that, right? That's like,
I think, the more that we get around them, you get the sense of the heart of everything. And they're good people that like to be around each other. They enjoy coming to work. And, when you're not winning, you could frankly not enjoy coming to work, but it's like they're so motivated to just be with the guys and be with each other and enter the building and see everything. It's very refreshing. And I don't know, what's the countdown, guys? How far away is the season
66
opener?
maybe, 65?
We're getting closer.
Let's go.
Somewhere in the low 60s.
I'm ready for camp. It's going to be fun.
And it's early this year, Kevin, so careful what you ask for.
I know.
It's late July, right?
Yeah, because you start August 31st.
Yeah,
so
Kevin, it's going to be on
right
you
around the corner.
in less than a month. I mean, come on.
Well, media days is less than a month, and we got to make sure we pack a little heavier for media days because it's a 3-day event this year.
Well,
that'll be.
We got 32 teams to listen to in the Big Ten. I mean, come on. Come on.
Whatever. As long as it's football talk, it's going to be all good.
That's Kevin Sjuts from 1011 News in Lincoln. Kevin, we appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Be well, guys.
Thanks, Kev. Be safe.
I got to remind you real quick about our friends over at Team Jack Foundation. TeamJackFoundation.org is the place to go to donate, to volunteer, to find out what events are coming up, and to figure out what projects Team Jack is currently working with to find better treatments for childhood brain cancer and one day a cure. TeamJackFoundation.org is where you can find all that information. Please go support our friends over at Team Jack. That's CB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We will be back to wrap up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. Melissa Etheridge, by the way. We are live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. No one has any idea why I said Melissa Etheridge except for DB.
Free DB.
But that's that's how the show rolls sometimes, all right? Some inside jokes.
Pretty fluid.
You know, we just we stay loose with it. It's all right. It's good.
Pretty fluid.
Hey, did my other favorite head coach say anything recently?
We have go, no go for launch?
It's a shame, man.
Still can't even.
No.
I don't even recognize what we're doing.
He was just responding that he is a leader of men and he is not going to the NFL.
Okay,
he said that he got some pushback. He just said, I'm a leader of men, not a follower of men. I'm a father, not a baby daddy. I lead my sons. I don't follow my sons.
I just love that.
I was just here for the comment section.
Yeah.
Because anytime you put something out there like that, you know me, I'm going to the comments. And he always gets pushback from like former players.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just can't imagine like Coach Rule putting something out there every day, and like just former player after former player is like, yeah, he's not he's not telling the truth.
Yeah,
he's not telling the truth.
Well,
he's not that dude.
You know, I just really respect that Dion isn't going to do the cliche thing and follow in the long line of 4 and 8 coaches that have been plucked to go to the NFL. You know, I'm just glad that he's out front of the rumors, because obviously 32 teams are banging down the door of Colorado to hire this guy that lost 8 of his last 9 games.
Color me curious though to see
color you bad
what happens with Hey Beautiful Lady. I think I skated to that song.
Probably
Skateland.
Skate parties.
Yeah, I remember vividly actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I skated to Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba.
Okay. I am curious though to see what the draft analysts say when Shedeur comes out.
Yeah.
Because that is a quarterback that has to run your locker room.
Yeah, I think he's going to be polarizing.
It's gonna be fascinating.
Maybe, and I think he's better physically than this guy that I'm about to say, but maybe the most polarizing prospect that since Johnny Manziel, where you're just dealing with a lot of other stuff.
Wow, you think he's better physically than Manziel? Boy, we sleep on Johnny. Hey, you want a rabbit hole?
Mm-hmm.
Go check out Manziel. This dude was like Houdini.
Yeah. Maybe he's not. I mean, maybe that's fair. Manziel's better with his feet.
So I wonder what his measurables will be. But I say.
But regardless,
like if
he's a very polarizing prospect, or going to be.
We'll see, right? The whole leader develop. Like
there's just a lot going on besides football stuff with him.
A lot of times, kind of people's outward behavior. Now you can have some defiant kids. Don't get me wrong. Like I think there are some decent parents whose kids have kind of gone wayward, but usually there's some telltale sign. But he doesn't appear to be ready to embrace not being connected to his father yet.
Yeah.
So I mean,
he really is not.
And the NFL is tough. And like, is he all of a sudden not going to say anything? Because he always has something to say.
Shedeur? Yeah. Well, and you wonder, like, he seems to have a lot of interests outside of football.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys typically don't do that well.
Yeah.
Just in the NFL. Like, I'm not.
Whether it's wanting to be in the studio, Call of Duty.
Whatever it is, right? Whether it's streaming, whether it's, hey, I got to miss minicamp because I'm going to be rapping with Lil Wayne. Whether it's like, hey, I care more about my Maybach than I do my playbook. Like, I don't know. There's a lot going on there.
I don't even know what Maybach is.
It's a fancy car.
Oh.
They used to be their own brand, but Mercedes ended up buying them a few years back.
Gotcha.
Just there, it's like a super fancy, whatever. Think like Bentley.
Okay.
But like there's guys that have a lot of other interests.
LaCharles
Bentley?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
LaBradford Smith.
I went down another rabbit hole last night on TikTok.
Yeah.
Hated the way he ran, and I never got it. But, man, Darren McFadden had some sweet runs.
Ooh, Arkansas, great.
But for a fast guy, he got caught a lot.
Yeah.
You talk about upright.
He was. That dude was. He was like run, Forrest, run, you know?
Yeah, well, I think if he was 6'3", I think so. 5'6" of it was his legs.
Yeah. He did run a little goofy. Good back, though.
Yeah.
I mean, college, he was a good back. He was fun to watch in college.
Didn't
fit your eye.
No,
that's fine.
Kind of weird.
He was fun to watch in college, though.
But
who was the guy that was with him? Was that wasn't Peyton Hillis at the same time, was it?
Yeah, I think so.
They had a couple really good backs at the same time.
Yeah, and who was their coach that had the famous plane incident?
Was that Houston Nutt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's guys like this, man, the best running back in the country. We're the number 1 team tonight.
Yeah.
All right, then Houston. He's like losing his mind in the post-game presser.
I almost said something I think could have got me in a lot of trouble, so I'm gonna stop that. I'll tell you off air. It's a see that was one of those. That was like I saw the joke and I stopped myself because we were talking about it earlier.
Good job. You're entering adulthood with self-control.
Listen, it's never too late. I'm almost 37. We'll get there one day or another. We'll get there.
TG says, I'm not saying it makes sense, but I just keep thinking I can see Jerry bringing him and with his son in a package deal.
I mean, that if anybody's gonna do it, it's somebody like Jerry.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you in about 2 months to see what Dallas does with Parsons, Judy, and Prescott, because that'll pretty much tell you all you need to know.
What I want to know is I do think there's a fascination. There is a fascination with Deion. I get that. I wonder what record he would have to get this year, like what he'd have to do for there to be actual NFL interest. Because I make fun of him because right now, no one's hiring him in the NFL as a head coach. He's 4-8. But what number would he have to get to wins?
Felix Jones.
Felix Jones.
Guess who told me? Who? And call him by his correct name. It was Kevin.
Trevor?
Kevin.
Oh, Kev?
No, Kevin.
My guy, Big Kev? Love Kev. Good dude. I don't know Kev at all.
He's a great dude.
Yes.
It was Felix Jones. Good call.
Felix Jones. That was, when was Hillis there?
25.
Hillis there before or after? I'm going to have to look this up. This is going to bother me.
So Peyton Hillis was also on that list of forgotten backs that, I follow that guy.
Was pretty good.
And guys that it was the same. No, he did top 10 forgotten running backs in college football. And that was the one where Noel Devine, speaking of Deion, Noel Devine and
how'd that go for Noel Devine?
All right.
I'm just asking.
Okay.
That dude couldn't have been taller than 5'4".
Yeah.
So he played for the Nighthawks for a hot second, and I was standing next to him, and I am 5'9", right at, not any extra bit, just right at 5'9". And this dude was staring at my chin.
You were a huge FSU guy. You wanted that to kind of stick around, didn't you?
I mean, I would have taken him.
What a crazy recruitment!
I would have taken him at FSU for sure. I wouldn't have been mad about that.
They went on a run of trying to get Moss on campus and Noel Devine.
I think they had Moss on campus.
At FSU.
They had him, and then he got in a little trouble, had to go. He was on a zero tolerance policy, apparently. I'm just saying. Can you imagine?
What was Hillis's year?
Can you imagine him and Peter Warwick in the same just running routes together?
Oh, can you imagine Peter Warwick in 2024?
Yes. I've said this forever because I love Peter Warwick way ahead of his time. Because they would have put him in the slot now.
Oh, yeah.
And all of that Wildcat, goofy game stuff. Just give me Peter Warwick in Kyle Shanahan's offense.
Just the over routes.
Oh my gosh.
The sail route, just the ability to work in the slot.
He was so good.
He'd have been a better version of Diggs.
We love Peter Warwick. Here, this is a Peter Warwick Stan account now, just so everybody knows.
Oh my gosh, yes.
What were you? Don't make it weird, Shane.
Peyton's years.
He was there from 04 to 07. I think 07 overlaps with McFadden.
I knew
I thought they played together.
I know. But he is right though.
But Felix Jones was the one I was thinking.
They were the 1-2 punch.
Man, there's been some random really good combos. Minnesota had Maroney and Barber at the same time.
Yeah.
So really good. You had Cadillac Williams and Ronnie Brown at the same time. That was all within 04 to
put in your TikTok search.
Yeah.
Best running back duos. There's a guy that has done it on college where he ranks them. It's pretty good.
Yeah. So 07 Arkansas, Darren McFadden goes for 1,800. Felix Jones goes for another 1,100. And then Peyton Hillis, just a paltry 350, but he had 500 yards receiving.
Yeah.
What on earth?
Keeps you on your toes.
Hey, those guys landed Houston. Not a pretty good job, though.
Yeah, you got that Ole Miss job?
Yeah.
Got that Ole Miss money?
Listen, for a second. Yeah. Apparently, that's quietly not a bad job.
No, I don't think it is.
Good enough to get Kiffin to stay.
To this day.
Yeah.
Dude comes up every year.
I think there's probably not a ton of jobs he'd leave for at this point. I do think there are some. But I think the issue with Ole Miss isn't resources or anything like that. I think the fan base forgets that they're Ole Miss. They see all their friends and neighbors in the SEC, and they're like, oh, we can be Alabama or Georgia. It's slow down. You're Ole Miss. I need you to chill. Not saying you can't get, not saying you can't get to the
one that
mountaintop.
penciled them in for 10 again.
Who, Ole Miss?
Ravi here for Ole Miss in Iowa.
You know I love Lane Kiffin. Big Lano guy. Love him.
I know.
Not as much as we love Peter Warwick, though.
I thought you loved Dan Hurley.
Peter Warwick, Ron Dugans.
I thought you loved Bo Jackson.
Ron Dugans, Lavernius Coles.
I don't think he's
Snoop
listening.
Minnis.
I
Woo!
don't think he's listening to you, Shay.
That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We got hour 3 coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and for this third hour, we're live on KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. Just want to point out here that, and we're going to get to some other stuff, but so Brian Christopherson, who we just talked to at the 8 o'clock hour, just retweeted an article from the Texas A&M 24/7 site talking about not only the Jim Schlossnagle incident, but they're also apparently, and I didn't know this until I started reading this during the break, that Schlossnagle actually went and confronted the reporter who asked the question after he stormed out of the press conference and basically like scolded him and told him never to speak to him again.
Weird.
This is like, that's a dude that's projecting a little bit on his insecurities about what's going on. And it goes on to talk about how, Schlossnagle has a history of some questionable integrity choices there. But this is the thing that I'm talking about with like the media stuff. Like, knock it off. Be not media people, the people who are
knock it off. All right.
Like,
was that Ryan Leaf?
Just because they got you doesn't mean you get to be a Richard to those people because your secret got out. Like, it's like the guy who has an affair and then is mad at the person that told his wife. It's like, hey, you had the affair, dummy. Quit trying to act like this is anybody else's fault. It's not. You took this job a month ago, Jimmy.
I thought it was Richard.
That's a different guy. Actually, that might have been the name of the reporter, if I actually think it was. But, like, knock it off. If you don't want to talk about it, just be like, hey, I'm not answering any questions about anything else right now. Like, it's super easy. We see people do it all the time. An 18-year-old, 17-year-old quarterback commit to Nebraska just did it. Like, hey, I'm just not going to talk about that. Okay, guess what? They may ask again, but yeah, hey guys, I'm just really not talking about that.
How
hard is that to do, DB?
I don't know, but that stuff doesn't seem to stick.
Which stuff?
Like
the Schlossnagle stuff?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to stick. Like, are we going to be like, I hope he wins if you're a fan. Otherwise, it can come back. But
yeah.
We've seen some unceremonious departures. And, I mean, we don't talk about Chip Kelly leaving LSU or Jimbo leaving FSU, right?
That's because FSU was trying to kick him out the door.
Well, I know you're going to defend.
No, there was a.
I get it.
I was mad at the time.
The juice wasn't. They're like, okay, fine. You keep chasing these ambulances.
He was mailing it in for the last 2 years. Yeah. Like, he won the title and stopped coaching and really stopped recruiting. Like, that was a weird situation. But, like Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley, they were furious. Like, they wanted to burn that dude's house down. They were so mad at Lincoln Riley. And he didn't say anything. Yeah. Right?
And it came out of nowhere.
Remember, that's what I think.
No real.
Yes. Because everybody was talking about, who were they talking about? Yeah, Franklin. They were talking about James, like they always do for USC for whatever reason. I don't think USC wants him. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think they're interested. USC has maybe gotten James Franklin more raises than anything he's done on football.
Yeah, I just wonder if the profile of that job got better or worse since they came to
USC,
the Big Ten, because I think the perception was before Oregon started doing their thing was, oh man, they can have fun in the sun and win conference title championships out there.
Yeah.
Gonna be pretty difficult.
It's gonna be harder now. It's a harder job now. It also has the potential to be a better job now, but it's harder.
Well, I don't know. You gotta leapfrog at minimum 3.5 programs.
Yeah. But you can still make the playoff potentially.
Because you'd make the case that they'd have to leapfrog Penn State.
Yeah.
Or you put them on par.
I think it's about close. I think it's close. I think you're talking about Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon.
Already Oregon.
I mean, Oregon's been really – I mean, we have to wait and see in the Big Ten, but they're really good. And they've been really good. And I think they're built in a way that makes sense for the Big Ten. I think Dan Lanning's a really good coach. Like, I think they're doing a really good job.
Well, one thing we're going to put to the test is, does school trump where you play? Because those West Coast folks that like the West Coast, where SC has been able to make hay, you're going to miss 3/4 of those games because they're not going to be on the West Coast.
Yeah. Well, but where else do you go on the West Coast now? There's no
You're right.
elite power conference programs out there anymore.
Yep.
So it's
Oregon's there with you. Washington's there with you.
UCLA's out there with you.
Yeah.
And it's not like Stanford over in the ACC. Like, that's not going to help.
And it wasn't going to be an ASU Arizona thing.
No. That's the closest Utah, maybe Utah makes some hay as a Big 12 school.
They might.
That's about it, though. That's the only team that has a chance, really, because they were kind of dipping into some of those same waters that USC used to. I think that's why USC stopped getting such good and coaching, but like some of the defensive linemen and players that, like a lot of those Samoan,
Polynesian,
a lot of those Polynesian and Samoan guys that used to be like, you're like Ray Malugas of the world and those guys. A lot of those guys go to Utah now, and so that'll be interesting to see. But if you're a public figure,
don't blame it on the media.
No, like sometimes the media is at fault. I get that, but when you're the one having the affair, don't blame it on the guy that found out. Okay, that's all. Pretty simple. That's a simple ask. Let's talk about the NBA draft.
You went Richard.
I'm sorry. I'm trying so hard not to swear on the air when I'm talking about people that are acting foolish.
Well, your first 20 minutes, we almost didn't get out.
Yep, that's fair.
Back in the day.
Exactly.
I get back in the day in the first hour. It's been a long time.
Back in the day.
I get frustrated. People act stupid. I don't like it.
You want me to reread out loud the final haul after Mikal Bridges moved for the
KD.
Nets?
The Nets KD trade. This is
so
after.
this is after. Shane, listen to this. If you're a general manager or if you're in Detroit where they have like 64 people now in the front office.
Yeah, it's unclear what any of their jobs are.
Senior to the senior of
apparently
vice president of operations.
None of their jobs are to
So
make
who's the boss? Is it Lindsay or Trajan Langdon?
Nobody knows.
Okay. Well, anyway.
What could go wrong?
He's only hired like 6 guys.
And none of their jobs are apparently to teach people how to be good at basketball.
Well, he did get rid of his GM and his coach. So Weaver just took a job with the Wiz, who pick early, so we'll get to them.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the final haul after all the pieces were moved last night. And the Nets get 5 first-round picks. Okay, so this is the finality of what they got and ultimately what it's going to end up since Kevin Durant, and they accrued the picks.
Mm-hmm.
So the Nets got Cam Johnson, 8 unprotected first-round picks.
Say that again.
8 unprotected first-round picks. 8.
Okay.
1 protected first-round pick.
Only one person out of those 9 picks was like, hey, maybe we should protect this one.
2028 first-round pick swap, a 2028 unprotected pick swap, and 3 second-round picks. Are the Nets the Los Angeles Chargers of the NFL? So with all of that, do you have trust that the Nets will ever win?
No.
Just seems like one of those franchises, doesn't it?
Yeah, which is kind of funny because the Thunder were in a pretty similar position.
Oh, when I was like
a couple years ago
championing Sam Presti.
And it didn't take very long and you're like, oh, yeah, they're going to be good again.
Boston did it.
And Boston did with fewer assets than that.
But they did They did stockpile picks.
But Oklahoma City had similar assets, is good already. And
Boston still has pieces they could move.
Yeah.
If Stevens wanted to
shake things up a little bit.
Yeah.
Tweak a little.
It sounds like a fire sale, or they might
Can you imagine though?
Who should you get for that haul? Should you get? Because KD's good, but he hasn't been what Phoenix has bargained for. He hasn't been what they needed.
If you're getting rid of that many people for one person like that in that trade, there's got to be some kind of financial issue that they're foreseeing over there, and that they're trying to fix right away.
Pretty good,
that's what they're doing. That's got to be what they're doing.
Now I get it. They had the arsenal to move Bridges.
Yeah.
But that's got to shake up. Does it make the Knicks desirable in free agency?
I don't know. Do the Knicks need to be desirable in free agency?
I don't know, but the Nets have some pieces they can move now.
I think if
you want to go get a ready-made guy.
If you can re-sign Anunoby, I think the Knicks are good. I think they're happy.
Apparently, they don't want to come off OG.
That's what I mean. If you can re-sign him, then do you need to go get anybody new? That's a pretty good team.
Yeah.
You got Bridges. Let's say they keep OG.
Yeah.
If Randall comes back and can assimilate to being a 2, That's the question.
I listened to him, or I saw him on what broadcast was he?
He was on the finals broadcast, yeah.
And I get it,
He's
right? He
wearing a
looks
bad
homeless.
suit.
He looks
Bad
homeless,
suit,
but
man.
he's actually he's sneaky smart.
No, I liked his his commentary.
Me too.
He wasn't super polished, but like the content was good.
Yeah.
And I just buddy, if you're listening, I know you are, because a lot of people listen to us in New York. Like Julius Randle, let me help you out. I can get your style right. We'll be good.
Claude, have mercy.
I don't know. It's a lot of stuff to give up, though. But isn't the percentage of somebody that you're going to get in the draft, isn't it low though compared to for the success rate?
Out of 9 first round picks, if you don't get a Mikal Bridges, you're terrible at your job.
Well,
Mikal Bridges is a nice player.
Well,
he is not if you can't get that, what are you doing? And here's the thing about draft assets, right? You can't spend all of those picks. You can't. Like, that's the same thing with Oklahoma City, right? They spent a few of them, and now they're like, okay, now we got to go cash in.
Boston held on to theirs.
Yeah, but it wasn't over as long of a period of time, right?
It's like 5 years.
Yes, but they got their main dudes in Tatum and Brown in back-to-back years, and then they were kind of good, and they maneuver from there, right? Like, you're talking about almost a decade out with the Nets and with OKC. So you have to kind of condense that timeline a little bit by dealing some of those away.
I blinked, but how did the Sixers get so much cap space?
Are they letting Tobias walk, or is he still under contract?
They're in a good spot to have Maxey and Embiid
and cap space.
And yes,
yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look into that.
I'd have to.
I'd have to look at maybe dumping Harden, and I don't. Is Harris still under contract?
It might have something to do with Ben Simmons.
Probably. Getting rid of Simmons, Harden, and then if Tobias isn't under contract anymore, that would do it, I think.
What do I like? Spark Track or
Sport Track?
Yeah.
Yeah. But who would you, I'm just trying to figure out, I'm going like NBA history. Who would you have to trade to be like, yeah, 9 first rounds makes about sense?
NBA?
Yeah.
Probably Herschel Walker. Maybe Ricky Williams.
Very good basketball players, as we know.
I'm just trying to think it's like similar moves.
Yeah, but in the NFL, it's so different because there's more draft picks, right? Nobody's giving up 9 firsts in the NFL.
Oh, I know.
You might give up 9 total, but half of them are in the third day. Not the band. But there's you'd have to get Michael Jordan for that haul. I wouldn't trade for Jesus Christ himself for 9 first round picks.
If you want to win, you better maybe make that move. I think you have to think about that.
I don't know. It's can he play in those sandals though? I don't.
He can do whatever he wants.
He's T.I. Do whatever he like.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm just saying. There's 9 first round picks.
Seems like a lot
for late stage KD.
And hasn't won you much.
I mean, people forget, especially people that listen to me. People forget he hasn't won anything without Steph Curry. Did you know this?
Stop it.
Has he won any NBA titles without Steph Curry?
You know what the projected practical cap space is for Philly?
What?
55 mil.
Okay, that's a good amount. So that's a max and a role player?
It's the second highest.
Who's got the most?
We just talked about him.
OKC?
Nope.
Nets?
No.
Pistons?
Yes.
Ugh, yeah, nobody's going to Detroit, though.
Dude, can you imagine, somebody like Reed Shepherd going to Detroit? And he's like, wait a minute. Houston seems so much better.
It's like, hey, guys, could we...
I've seen a lot of... So the most fluctuation I've seen is with Klingon.
Yeah, because some people are talking... People genuinely believe he's in play at 1 for the Hawks.
That would be incredible.
Which is why.
I don't know what that I would see that would get me to take Sarr over or Klingon over Sarr.
Yeah, probably not.
The fact that he's ready immediately defensively?
Yeah, so it would be like if Atlanta's convinced themselves that they can win with Trae Young. That's kind of the move.
I'm kind of hoping he moves he's one of those not talked about pieces. Everybody's on PG and I'm kind of hoping.
Are you a Trae Young guy? It kind of seems like you're a Trae Young guy.
I'm a big fit guy, right? So I think Atlanta just reminds me of one of those friends. They're kind of like the Chargers. Or the Nets. I just don't know if they're ever going to get it right.
That's fair, but why?
So I'd like to see him someplace else.
Just to see if he's good or not?
Yeah, because I think he is.
I don't think he is.
No, that's okay. You're still riding the Luka Doncic thing.
I think he's. Hey, no, you got to take Trae over Luka.
To this day.
Right? I mean, shoot, what are we doing here?
I am not getting it. You're not drawing me in that. Wasn't that argument in your little group?
Oh, yeah.
The Trae versus Luka thing?
It wasn't Trae versus Luka. It was just Luka in general. Our guy, D. Marias, wasn't quite sold on Luka as a draft prospect. But he's taken that L. He's accepted it. He has. He's admitted it. He was like, yeah, I was wrong. I missed. That's my bad.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know, right? Could you just see D. Marinas just caving?
He didn't cave. He takes in new information and he learns. And
so are you taking Zachary 1?
I guess.
Ugh.
I don't like anybody here.
It's the Hawks.
I don't like anybody until you get I don't like any of these guys unless they're being drafted at like 6.
And you would start with Sarr?
Probably Sarr. I'd probably start with Sarr. I think the Hawks think that he's a little too far off in terms of a project to be useful immediately. And that's going to probably be the thing that deters them away from Sarr.
Mm-hmm.
But also Sarr hasn't worked out for him and is refusing to work out for him. And that's really hard to take a guy that you haven't got to see up close and personal. I mean, we see that with Rule, right? He's like, hey, I like to see guys in person.
You want to...
There's no guy I like at number 1. Like, just full disclosure. There's no one that I'd be like, yeah, I feel great about him at number 1.
Whose draft is this?
Okay.
Moritz Wagner.
Okay.
DeAndre Hunter.
Okay.
Jaden McDaniels.
What do you mean whose draft?
Whose draft? What team's
What
draft
team?
is? Isaiah Jackson. Jaden McDaniels. Mojave King. Max Christie. Tony Bradley.
Mm-hmm.
Larry Nance Jr. Julius Randle. I'm going to give you 2, and it's going to give it away.
Okay. I mean, I think I already have it with Julius Randle, but
who is it?
It's the Lakers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How bad is that?
It's pretty bad.
I didn't even get to Jalen Hood-Schifino.
Yeah.
That's no big deal.
You moved off Alonzo Ball.
Mm-hmm.
You moved Brandon Ingram.
Mm-hmm. Who I like. I think is good.
He's
probably not. He's not a 1, but like he's a really nice
full
player.
disclosure, I did kind of like Jalen Hood-Schifino.
Yeah.
It's like that's why the
draft is hard.
It's
really hard.
I watched the deal yesterday with Paul George on, again, of course, TikTok.
Oh yeah, you sent that to me. The Deontay Burton.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that how hard the NBA is?
Yeah.
He goes, that's just the NBA. Like, this guy is good.
Yeah,
he would lock us up in practice.
Yeah.
He would give us buckets. And I would ask our coach, why isn't this guy playing?
Mm-hmm.
When he was in OKC.
I thought he was going to go into this like sob story about something happening to him. And he's like, nah, just that's the NBA. It's kind of the, there was a story about Ron Artest back in the day about how to this day,
I prefer Art over Deontay.
About how like this dude was a go-to scorer at St. John's and all this or whatever. It's like he is a defensive role player now. Like he went from being that dude to like, you better be pretty damn sure this is a good shot before you shoot it.
Yeah, I remember a long time ago, way back when I could return punts and kickoffs on television.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just a year later, I'm on the front wall, like setting the wedge.
It's different.
It's hard.
It's a little different.
Pros are tough. It's like, wait a minute.
That's not where I expected that to go at all. That caught me off guard.
Not only am I wearing a fat kid number, I'm on the front wall. Like, can I get back where they could like squib it to me?
What number you wearing? Like 42?
35.
Oh, okay. That's not too bad.
Freaking sucks.
42, that's Ronnie Lott. That's a stud number right there.
I didn't say 42, ding-a-ling. Don't mind Neil Anderson or somebody. Might want to wear that number. Just name me a good 35 you like. Not named Chris Brown. He's that took you too long.
35. Aeneas Williams?
No, he's 36, I think. No, was Aeneas Williams 35?
I think Aeneas Williams.
You might be right. And I know he did wear that in St. Louis
when it was the Cardinals.
Yeah.
I think it was a 35. Look it up.
It's pretty bad.
I think Ravi got one on you.
I don't want to be Aeneas Williams though.
Aeneas Williams was good, man. What are you doing?
No, he was. He was nice, but he wasn't a fat kid either. He's a little guy.
Yeah, he's a good ball player. Come on now.
I don't want to wear that number. But how are you having any fun? And why would they invest? Well, no disrespect, man. I mean, the NBA, it's hard. I'm happy that for anybody to get drafted.
Yeah.
But a 2-day television event? Who's tuning in? Who's doing appointment TV for round 2?
That's a fair question. You asked us earlier. I don't have a good answer.
I mean, are you saying if Bronny doesn't go 17, who's actually taking him?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. I don't think.
Did you see our boy?
No, not yet.
I think he's messing with me.
I haven't been under the impression that casual people watch at the NBA draft anyway. That's not the sense that I get. And so again, I think it's one of those hey, it's a kind of a dry spot in the calendar. Let's throw draft on for a couple nights. Let's see if it works.
Yeah, I don't know.
What else? I mean, what else is ESPN showing right now?
We talking baseball?
No, we're
double header. They can put that on.
We're not talking baseball.
Aren't the Braves and or?
But if you don't want to watch baseball, if that's not your jam, what else are you watching right now? You maybe catch some WNBA, but that's about it.
My man DT's talking about. Can you imagine we're 71?
Maybe Copa America.
At least he won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, you go. You said.
Shoot.
You said fat.
You could have put me out there naked, and I don't. If I could win a Super Bowl, well, maybe not, but I would wear a lot of things to win a Super Bowl.
Just go out there in the jock strap and let's go, guys. You're just looking at all the advertisements around the stadium. You're like,
okay, here we go.
I should read more. That's a great deal. T-Mobile can give you home internet. That's unbelievable.
Okay. Doing way too much. Just went into full-fledged character on demand, huh? That's right on cue. A 2-topping $10 pizza is a good deal. I'd never seen it before.
It's an incredible deal. You know what else is a good deal? Getting over to unionomaha.com for tickets to tomorrow night's game against Chattanooga, Warner Park, 7 p.m. It is Cancer Awareness Night, and it's part of the USL Jägermeister Cup. Make sure you get to unionomaha.com to check it out. I'm going to have to send it to DB so he can read about it and then decide if it's a good deal or not. But you can trust me, it is a good deal. Get to unionomaha.com. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll be back with more. Maybe if DB comes back. I don't know.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We are back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are live on the Pillar Exterior stage, and we are talking a little NBA draft, among other things.
No, I'm not talking to you at all.
Talking about, DB's favorite numbers, and at least you weren't in the 40s, man. Like, that's a plus.
Well, there are at least good backs in the 40s.
There's good backs in the 30s.
I mean, yeah, but they're like, again, I said 35, and you hit me with Aeneas Williams. Like, there's nothing about me that says Aeneas Williams.
I mean, he's pretty good.
It's great. He's an itty-bitty DB.
I mean, okay, do I need how big is Aeneas Williams? We're going to look at this real quick, because I don't think he's that small. He is a DB, but so are you, technically.
Guess what, though?
What?
Guess what I read today?
What'd you read today?
That you can
I mean, he's 5'11". How tall are you?
Dude, what does he weigh? Like 170?
Look at him. He's not that little.
Dude, what were his measurables, numbnuts? Not what he aged at. Jeez.
I'm going to look up combine stats.
Shane, did you guess what?
Combine.
Guess what I saw today?
Kids eat free on Tuesdays with the purchase of an entree. Would you know that if you didn't read?
I don't know how to read.
Guys, we should read more.
Hey, from what I'm seeing right now, 35 is more of a baseball number.
Frank Thomas. 5'11".
Not so much NFL, not so much
5'11",
NBA.
187.
I've been 187 since high school.
There's
That's
like
okay.
one guy in the NHL.
That's all right.
Shane, are you missing the point, or like what are we doing?
You already told me kids eat for free.
How
that was the...
you might have been a little faster than Aeneas.
No, he could run.
I'm looking at his 40. That's all I'm saying. You told
What
me
he run?
You want to guess?
No.
4.57.
Yeah, it's barely.
Yeah.
Dang, as a 186 pounder,
good skills,
man. If I was 186, I bet I could run like.
You want to know what was
3.2 in the 25?
What do you run a 3.2 in?
The 25. Is that a race?
I don't think so. I don't think people do that a lot.
Hey, what'd you run in the 25?
He did have a 4.3 flat 20-yard shuttle.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Stop. You spent roughly 9 minutes of the show chopping me up. Don't try to build me up by comparing me to a slow guy.
A Hall of Fame slow guy.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it weird how that may not, like they'd be looking at you playing at like a nickel slot running 4.57.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, oh, God, didn't have the 40 time that we thought.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what?
Although there's been some guys like that run in like the high fives, or like, I think, who was Joe Hayden? Was he the 4.6 from Florida?
I don't know, but I liked Hayden.
I think it was Joe Hayden who ran like, and people
again, another one of those guys that you don't want to go to your team because he was previously with a team that you hate.
Yeah,
but the Hayden, the Browns to the Steelers thing, I wouldn't necessarily say panned out.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, I feel like I just want to go on the offensive for you acting the way you did, but
what'd I do?
The best thing that I could come up with is actually a real sports topic, so it's not necessarily a burn.
That's all right. What is it?
I just want Deebo Samuel or Ayuk to go to Pittsburgh.
That's rude. I don't like.
Hey, don't mind us.
I thought there was a ghost in here or something.
Whew. Oh,
Scared
man.
me. I thought I was going to start fighting.
As we will talk NFL and training camps.
I was ready to go. Let's talk NBA draft though. Thank you. As it was.
This dude's on a roll, Shane.
Some people just come here dropping boxes like we don't have headsets on.
Oh, he's the OG too.
No, I get that. It scared me.
Low key, he's kind of one. I've only heard him say like 7 actual real words.
It was like in my blind spot. I didn't see it.
He always waves.
Man, I need to start working on my peripherals.
He's been here since we have.
I had no idea. Scared the daylights out of me.
Okay,
that's like another Mama Rose thing. It's scared the daylights out of me.
Old people.
Yes, let's talk a little NBA draft here because we got Baylor Shireman. We think gonna go in the first round tonight.
I hope so.
I think so. I'm hoping so. But currently projected by ESPN as of last night to go 27 to the Timberwolves. Is that a good fit?
Yeah, they could use a shooter.
Good IQ. Maybe it'll help with the ball movement a little bit. It gets a little sticky there in Minnesota.
No. Well, remember, I famously asked the question to an NBA expert, and he basically chopped me at the knees and said, "That's not
what's happening.
It's not what he does." I'm like, how can a guy that handles the ball so much not facilitate passing?
You'd like to see anybody who handles the ball that much have a little bit of a facilitation, right? Like we kind of forget Jordan had a couple seasons where he averaged like 8 assists a game. Is Anthony Edwards a better scorer than Michael Jordan or a worse scorer than Michael Jordan?
Why are you comparing Anthony Edwards to Michael Jordan?
Well, because like if we're gonna use like, hey, that's not what he does.
Is this a Noel Divine Dion thing?
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm intrigued. I don't think I've ever heard this comparison before.
Yep. Not in your sphere.
Also, people throw it out there with Jimmy Butler too.
You know the funny thing about what he just said?
He genuinely doesn't know what we're talking about.
He is 100% being authentic.
It's fine.
Shane, God made you special.
Forgive me, but hopefully there's something good there.
Is that like from VeggieTales? And he loves you very much.
Yes. It's okay. Some people are cucumbers, some are tomatoes.
Definitely not asparagus.
Some are asparagus, the little annoying dude.
And some people act like eggplants.
All right, now I'm not interested anymore.
Just the lowlights.
Long story, Shane. Long story.
No, I would like to see the guy that has the ball in his hands most of the time be able to move the ball a little bit to his teammates. That'd be ideal.
Well, who made fun of me for asking if you liked
pina coladas? And getting caught in the rain. No, sorry, go ahead.
The punch you dead square. Just in your earlobe. It won't leave a mark and it hurts like heck.
Well, you're gonna have to move the headphones to do that.
All right. I forgot what I was gonna ask you. When I asked if you like watching Minnesota's offense, and then they scored like 120, and he sent me a message. He's like, "Hey, you like watching Minnesota's?" Who was that?
I don't know, but don't confuse points with appealing to watch offense.
I mean, so is that a good fit? Like, it doesn't seem like a good fit.
No, because philosophically, I don't know if they want to do the things that Baylor's best at. I think they recognize.
I bet you it was TK again.
Maybe he gets a little snarky.
A little.
I gotta be nice because he likes me.
Dude, I had to tell him yesterday. I said, "You're starting to remind me of Ravi. You're not listening."
Oh, that's such a nice thing to say to people. They remind you of me.
Did I voice text that in front of you? Because if so,
you did.
Did I?
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I wouldn't say anything behind your back that I wouldn't say to your face.
Oh, that you probably already said to my face, if I had to guess. I mean,
it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with the way that you listen?
Yeah, right.
What about Milwaukee at 23? That's a little higher. Probably the top end of his range.
Milwaukee needs to do something.
Yeah, they really do.
Other than just air quotes, stay healthy. Like something is disjointed with them.
Yeah, they traded Drew Holiday for Dame Lillard. That was a terrible idea. Drew Holiday was essential to that team winning a title.
Well, so it wasn't Giannis staying healthy?
I mean, Giannis is good. Don't get me wrong.
Because when he got snipered, their trajectory changed.
Well, yeah, obviously. But also, Giannis has played in a lot of playoff series where it was like, okay, Drew Holiday's not healthy or whatever. Drew Holiday, Giannis was the best player on that team. They don't win the title without Drew Holiday. Like, trading Dame for Drew Holiday was misunderstanding what your problem was, I think, and misunderstanding what your solutions were, which part of them was Drew Holiday.
It just would be nice if they could have stayed healthy if we're gonna make that like bottom line, because you are the beneficiary of history.
I didn't like it at the time. I really didn't. Dame is really good. Don't get me wrong. I didn't think it was a good fit if you're losing Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
That's just how I felt about it. What about Phoenix at 22? Does he help Phoenix?
Golly, Jacob Padilla would
he'd lose his mind
and pom that thing.
He might move to Phoenix.
He would be sending their front office statistical data and analytics on what Baylor does well.
Do you so here's right in that range.
You think he would do that?
Oh, 100%.
The Phoenix Suns, do they have like a general email?
contact@phoenixsuns.com. Do you think, what about this one? What about Denver at 28?
I'd like him in Denver.
Better than Minnesota.
For sure. They moved the rock. And that's a smart basketball team.
You know what's maybe my favorite one?
And he's a big wing.
Yeah. It would make sense there. You know what's maybe my favorite one, but I sort of hate it because I'm not a fan? Boston at 30.
Leave it to them.
Boston at 30. If he falls to 30, that's an incredible pick for them.
I might have. Nah, I won't like Boston, but I'll like Baylor.
Oh, yeah. I'll root for Baylor.
I'll never like Boston.
No matter where he goes, but Denver feels good. Let's go to Denver, Baylor.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That'd be incredible.
And it's close.
Close. We can go see him. We love it.
You can.
That's DB. I'm Ravi.
Think
Lulla.
we'll be able to watch him in our market yet?
Oh, 100% no. We got Vinnie Iyer from the Sporting News up next to talk about the NFL.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We are joined now by Vinnie Iyer of the Sporting News to talk a little NFL. Vinnie, how are you this morning?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. How are the little training camp news dumps treating you right now?
They're going. I mean, this is the time I usually take some downtime, and I'm doing that for sure with the next few weeks. And just enjoying the calm before the storm. And the thing that we're looking at already is fantasy football, the rankings, and all that kind of good stuff. And those drafts will come around pretty soon in August. So hard to believe we just have like 10 weeks off from the NFL roughly, and then we go right back into it.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I wanted Shane to try to grab you is you're pretty level-headed. Like I just, reading, talking to you, and I'm a Steelers fan, so this offseason is driving me up the wall. If you're a fan and you're watching this team from outside, and you believe in Mike Tomlin and the message, and there's never a ton of wasted energy. How would you be watching this quarterback deal play out with this franchise?
Well, I think the good news is you don't need a lot from it, right? That position, rarely that you see a lot of teams needing everything out of quarterback to make the playoffs. But the Steelers are a playoff caliber team with their defense And I think the biggest thing that's kind of been overlooked on this team is how they've rebuilt their offensive line over the past couple off seasons. If they've seen something that doesn't work, they quickly pivot off of it. So I think they have their best kind of group up front that they've had in a while. So I think this team, Mike Tomlin, we know he's a defensive coach. In his heart, he wants to be a team that plays defense really well, runs the ball, and then sets up the passing game as a complementary effort. I think that's what you have with Arthur Smith here. So I think that lines up with his philosophy. So their success or failure will be determined by him a lot this year. And I think he just liked Wilson as a guy, maybe throwing back to the early Wilson that we saw in Seattle, where they had a defense, they had a running game with Marshawn Lynch, and maybe kind of rejuvenating Wilson in that sense. And if it doesn't work out longer term, we can look at Justin Fields, and he can handle run-heavy offense as well. So maybe they're just looking at it. We don't need a lot here from our team at quarterback, which is rare for most teams in league.
Vinny, I'm curious, and this
I needed that, by the way. I just don't like drama, right? Like, especially with this franchise, which is one of the things that's drawn me to them. So, I'm just looking for some different perspective.
Vinny, a team that's kind of been connected with the Steelers a little bit because their wide receiver situation is the San Francisco 49ers. Do you kind of buy this narrative that seems to be taking hold that they need to move on from one of either Debo and Ayuk? And if you do buy it, which one do you think is more likely that they move on from?
Yeah, I think they'll move on from Debo at some point because he's older, and that's just the way they have to kind of prioritize it. And he's also been injured a lot. Or Brandon Ayuk has just tapped into his upside. But the biggest question is going to be here, do they want to part with any of these guys and make one final run? Because I think you look at the Christian McCaffrey restructure here, and that tells you that their window is here, that they want to try to win here one more time with Brock Purdy on the cheap contract. Now, after they pay Purdy, all bets are off. They're going to have to make a lot of changes. George Kittle will be getting a little bit older as well, so they have to prioritize who they want to keep. I would think it's Kittle and Ayuk going forward. McCaffrey, they're going to realize is going to hit 30 and maybe have a drop off there, and then they'll have to pay running back as much. So I think they have a great plan in terms of always looking at what's coming and their salary cap issues. But I think for now, short term, because the 49ers want to win the Super Bowl, until that happens in this window, I just don't see them moving them. So I think they're going to maybe be forced to move them next year when they pay Purdy, and they can't do that until early next year. Then it's going to get interesting. But I think they're probably going to sit on them for this off season, and they have been, and they've shown no indication of trading either one, even though there's been a lot of hot rumors about both.
So they're going to go like Orlando Brown Jr., Volson, Karras, Kappa, and Trent Brown across the front. T. Higgins isn't going to get a long-term deal done, so this is obviously a huge year. Burrow's coming off of injury. Is this the year for T. Higgins to play nice and get by to set up the big payday? Is there the pressure of Burrow? How concerned are you about the direction of the Bengals with this offseason and giving up some key pieces?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that you look at here is now teams are being able to pay 2 wide receivers. I didn't think that was going to be as consistent. Maybe that comes into play a little bit with the 49ers, but you saw the Dolphins, they were able to extend Jalen Waddle with
a year early.
Now. Yeah, so they took care of both of those guys, and you had Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown getting deals at the same time for the Eagles. But maybe there's a realization here. We need to have 2 really good wide receivers. Now, third is maybe interchangeable. The Eagles don't really have a number 3. The Dolphins don't. The Bengals definitely did not keep Tyler Boyd. So maybe they're saying, okay, we need 2 wide receivers to keep our quarterback happy. But then you see a team like the Chiefs where they're like, okay, we just need a tight end and a mix of wide receivers to make our quarterback happy. So it's different philosophies here with different teams. But I think Higgins becomes more critical without Boyd. They don't really have a lot yet that they can lean on at tight end. So I think that's going to help them, where I think he'll get his deal eventually. They tend to pay their guys a lot. I think moving Joe Mixon was a smart move as he was getting older, but I think they realize you want to keep Burrow in a good spot here. If you want to get the most out of your big investment in Burrow, you got to add to that investment and give Higgins his deal, and then Jamar Chase probably his record-breaking wide receiver deal next year.
Yeah, the Zim Parsons thing is interesting unto itself, but then there's Lamb and Prescott as well. You more concerned about the coordinator star player thing, or getting all three guys signed if you're a Dallas fan in 2024?
Yeah, I think you're going to have a big evaluation season. I think the Cowboys have obviously gone the route that we're going to keep CeeDee Lamb and not worry about the other receivers too much yet. And they just say, look, we were able to do a lot with him. And then the offensive line is slowly being rebuilt here with Tyler Smith as the breakout star there. They should get better with Tyler Guyton on the left side eventually after he kind of develops with Tyron Smith gone. So they're in a bit of transition mode. I think the one you might evaluate more, I think you're pretty sure that you want to keep Parsons, you want to keep Lamb. I think Dak is the one you want to evaluate because he's the one that's going to give you the opening next year to potentially move on if you're not happy with what you get. Now, it's going to be very difficult for them to do that because Jerry Jones likes to please all his guys. But I would seriously take a look at that because if there's a disappointment in the playoffs again, despite Dak having a good season, you might say, look, we need to invest in other spots here, and we need to get a rookie quarterback contract and try to win with that and really load up on the other positions. So it'll be interesting if the Cowboys do go in that direction. It's hard to do. We haven't seen a lot of teams do it, but moving on from Dak might be something they have to think about here if they think like they can win around with the Lamb and Parsons intact.
Interesting you say that. My partner is trying to sell me on the idea that as volatile as Shedeur Sanders is in terms of what he may bring off the field and focus to an NFL franchise, that he could see Jerry Jones being a guy to make a play with the relationship with Sanders' family. Are you interested in the analysis and the draft prospect of Shedeur Sanders?
Yeah, I'm interested to see what he can do and develop. I think this is a good year for him to see what he has upside wise, to be more consistent here. And I think that's going to be key. And that's a very good point. I think they would not hesitate to maybe go in that direction. Keep in mind, they took a shot. You're not going to see the field probably, but they took a shot on Trey Lance. So they're intrigued by that type of quarterback that maybe needs a little bit of work, but still has a lot of athletic and a big arm upside. So something to definitely watch. But are you in better shape there if you can load up, complete that offensive line, get Lamb some help in the draft or the free agency next year, and then you say, okay, we have Parsons on the other side, we have some other weapons, and then said, okay, we can maybe win with Shedeur Sanders sooner rather than later. And it's something to consider because, again, I know these teams want to fit everyone in on the cap, and the cap keeps expanding to help facilitate that, but you have to make some tough decisions here if you're going to flip this franchise around. Because, again, as good as Dak has been, for some reason, even though he's played very well, that you can't get your team to win a playoff game with him. So what do you have to lose if you go in a different direction?
Vinnie, you put out a piece today, I believe, about the 25 best players under the age of 25 in the NFL. I imagine there were some tough cuts from that list. Who was the guy you had the hardest time with?
Well, I'll start at the top at quarterback. I mean, C.J. Stroud probably had a pretty good argument from what he did last year, but I just see Brock Purdy and what he's done with the 49ers, and he barely makes the list because he will turn 25 in December, so this is his last chance to kind of make that list. But that was kind of the hardest, but I'll tell you what was the easiest is finding room for all these Lions on the list. And this is
it's incredible.
It scares you about this team that they have 6 players that are core players that are under 25, and that's why they felt comfortable giving Jared Goff that big deal because none of these guys, except for Amon-Ra St. Brown, are making big money yet. So, yeah, they need Hutchinson, Lee McNeil on their defensive line. You've got Penei Sewell, who's already the best offensive tackle in the league. That isn't Trent Williams. So, I mean, this is just crazy how much young talent they've amassed for this team. And now I think the Lions, look, they're trying to keep Goff intact, but they're kind of the reverse of other teams where you've got all their youth elsewhere where they can pay Jared Goff a reasonable amount in relation to the other veteran quarterbacks and still feel good about their Super Bowl chances. So it'll be interesting to see if they can take advantage of Goff being here, or will they have to flip the page? I don't think Hendon Hooker is going to see the field anytime soon, but will the Lions have to finally make that move to get over the top here if they just don't get it done? But last year, I think they should have every confidence that they could get it done because they were very close to being the 49ers, that they held a lead. And keep in mind, they beat the Chiefs in week 1. So they're not very far off from being that championship team. It's because of the young core.
That's Vinnie Iyer from the Sporting News. Vinnie, we appreciate it. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Vinnie.
Thanks, guys.
We'll be back tomorrow with more Hurrdat Sports Radio.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.